She called me on a Tuesday. I was standing in a warehouse in Newark, watching a forklift operator nearly tip 3 pallets of boxed electronics because he'd miscalculated the weight distribution. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I saw her name and almost didn't answer. "Hey," I said, "I need you to come to something." Her voice had that rehearsed quality, like she'd practiced the line in her car before dialing. The forklift steadied. The operator wiped his forehead and gave me a thumbs up. I walked toward the loading dock, away from the noise. "What kind of something?" "The company Christmas party. It's Friday night, 7 o'clock at the Belmont Conference Center." I stopped walking. We hadn't attended a work function together in almost 2 years. Not since the summer barbecue where I'd stood alone by the grills while she networked with executives I'd never met. "You sure you want me there?" I asked. "Of course. Why wouldn't I?" The way she said it made my neck tense. Too bright, too casual, like she was inviting me to watch her win an award I hadn't known she'd been nominated for. "All right," I said. 7 o'clock? Great. Wear the charcoal suit, not the navy one." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there on the loading dock, phone still against my ear, watching a truck back up to Bay 7. The driver had his window down, smoking, one arm draped over the mirror. He looked bored. I envied him. The rest of the week passed in operational monotony. I reviewed shipping manifests, rerouted a delayed freight container through Baltimore, and audited inventory discrepancies for a client in Trenton. My work required precision, but not inspiration. I liked it that way. Systems made sense. Variables could be controlled. People were the chaos. By Thursday evening, I'd almost forgotten about the party. Then I came home and found her standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom, holding 2 dresses against her body. "Which one?" she asked, not looking at me. "One was red, the other was black, with a low back." "The black one," I said. She hung it back in the closet and laid the red one on the bed. "I'll wear this." I nodded and went to take a shower. The water pressure had been weak for a month. I'd called the landlord twice. Nothing changed. Friday came. I put on the charcoal suit. She was still in the bathroom, door closed, when I finished dressing. I stood in the hallway and listened to the low hum of her hairdryer. The apartment smelled like perfume and hairspray. When she finally emerged, she looked perfect. Hair styled in loose waves, makeup precise. Red dress fitted like it had been designed specifically for her body. She checked herself in the mirror, adjusted an earring, and grabbed her clutch. "Ready?" she asked. "Yeah." We took her car. She drove. I watched the city slide past the window, streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. It had rained earlier. The roads were slick and reflected everything. "You'll know some people there," she said as we merged onto the highway. "Probably not." "Jim from accounting will be there. You met him at the thing last year." "I don't remember Jim." She sighed, fingers tightening on the wheel. "Just try to be social, okay? It's important." "Important for what?" "For me." I didn't ask her to elaborate. She turned up the radio. Some pop song I didn't recognize. She hummed along. The Belmont Conference Center was one of those places designed to look expensive without actually being expensive. High ceilings, fake marble columns, a chandelier that was probably plastic. The parking lot was already full when we arrived. She parked near the back, and we walked across the wet asphalt toward the main entrance. Inside, the noise hit immediately. Laughter, clinking glasses, a bad cover band playing holiday music too loud. She touched my arm lightly, a gesture that might have looked affectionate to anyone watching, and leaned close. "I'm going to go say hi to some people. Get yourself a drink." Then she was gone, red dress disappearing into the crowd. I walked to the bar, ordered whiskey. Neat. The bartender poured it without looking at me. I took the glass and moved toward the edge of the room, near a decorative column wrapped in gold tinsel. From there, I could see the whole space. Round tables with white cloths. A small stage where the band played. People clustered in groups, laughing louder than the jokes deserved. I recognized no one. I sipped the whiskey. It was cheap but drinkable. Then I saw her. She was standing near the center of the room, surrounded by coworkers. She laughed at something someone said, touching the arm of a man in a navy suit. He was tall, confident posture, expensive watch. He leaned in to say something, and she laughed again. I watched. She didn't look my way, not once. I finished my drink and got another. The evening continued in predictable patterns. Speeches, awards, a raffle no one cared about. I stayed near my column, observing. A woman in a green dress glanced at me twice, then looked away quickly when I met her eyes. A man in his 50s, balding and sweating, came to the bar beside me and ordered a gin and tonic. "You work for the company?" he asked. "No." "Ah, guest?" "Something like that." He nodded like he understood, though he clearly didn't, and walked away. I checked my watch. 8:30. She was still near the center of the room. The man in the navy suit was still close to her. Too close. His hand rested on her lower back. She didn't move away. I set my empty glass on a passing tray and walked toward the bathroom hallway. I needed a moment away from the noise. The hallway was quieter, lined with ugly abstract art in cheap frames. The men's room was at the end. I pushed through the door. 2 men stood at the urinals. I went to the sink and ran cold water over my hands. The mirror showed a version of myself I barely recognized. Charcoal suit, tired eyes, a man who looked like he belonged here but didn't. I dried my hands and left. When I stepped back into the hallway, I saw her. She was walking toward me from the women's room, 10 feet away. The man in the navy suit was beside her. They were laughing. His hand was on her shoulder. She saw me and stopped. For 1 second, something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. Then it was gone. "There you are," she said brightly. Too brightly. The man looked at me, assessed me, smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "This is Greg," she said. "He's our regional sales director." Greg extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, performative. "Good to meet you," he said. "Likewise." We stood there in the hallway, 3 people pretending everything was normal. The bad music leaked through the walls. Someone laughed loudly in the main room. "We should get back," she said. She touched Greg's arm. They walked past me, back toward the crowd. I stayed in the hallway for another minute, then I followed. When I reached the main room, I saw them standing near the stage. She was whispering something to him. He grinned and nodded. Then she stepped onto the stage. The band stopped playing. Someone handed her a microphone. The room quieted. "Hi, everyone," she said, voice amplified and confident. "I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for being here tonight. This has been an incredible year for our team." Applause. She smiled, waiting for it to die down. "I also want to introduce you to someone very special." She gestured toward Greg. "Many of you know Greg already. He's been an amazing partner this year, in more ways than one." Laughter, a few whistles. My stomach tightened. "And I want to be honest with all of you about something." She paused, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on me. "My husband is here tonight. He's standing right there." Every head turned. I stood perfectly still. "But I need to tell you the truth." Her smile widened. "Greg is my real partner now. My husband, he's just here for appearances." The room erupted. Laughter, gasps, phones coming out of pockets. Someone near me said, "Oh my God." She was still smiling. Greg was grinning beside the stage, arms crossed, soaking in the attention. I looked around the room. Every face was turned toward me. Some looked shocked. Most looked entertained. A woman near the bar covered her mouth, eyes wide with delight. I did 3 things. First, I smiled. Second, I took a sip from the drink I was still holding. Third, I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, the laughter continued. I heard her voice through the speakers, saying something else I didn't bother to process. The cold air outside hit my face. I walked across the parking lot to where her car was parked and stood beside it, waiting. She'd driven. She had the keys. I stood there for 5 minutes, then 10. The cold soaked through my suit jacket. I didn't care. Eventually, the door opened behind me. I heard footsteps. She appeared, clutch in hand, face flushed from the warmth inside. "Ready to go?" she asked, like nothing had happened. I didn't respond. She unlocked the car. We got in. She started the engine. "That was a joke," she said as she backed out of the spot. "Everyone thought it was funny." I stared out the window. "You're not going to say anything?" she asked. "No." "God, you're so dramatic." She turned up the radio again. Same pop song. Different station. We drove home in silence. I didn't sleep that night. She did. She came home, took off the red dress, removed her makeup with slow, deliberate strokes, and climbed into bed like it was any other Friday. Within minutes, her breathing evened out. She was gone. I lay on my side of the bed, staring at the ceiling. The streetlight outside our window cast a pale rectangle across the wall. I watched it until dawn. At 6, I got up, showered, dressed in jeans and a sweater, made coffee in the silent kitchen. The apartment was cold. I didn't turn on the heat. She emerged around 9, wrapped in a bathrobe, hair tangled from sleep. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me at the small kitchen table. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep?" "You're still upset about last night." It wasn't a question. "No," I said. She studied me over the rim of her mug. "It was a joke. Everyone knew it was a joke." "Okay. Don't do that." "Do what?" "The passive-aggressive thing. If you're angry, just say you're angry. I took a sip of coffee. It was bitter. I'd made it too strong. I'm not angry. She sighed and stood up. Fine. Be like this. I have errands to run. She disappeared into the bedroom. I heard the closet door open, hangers sliding, drawers closing. 30 minutes later, she left without saying goodbye. I sat at the table for another hour, staring at my empty mug. Then I opened my laptop. I started by reviewing what I already knew. Dates, patterns. Her schedule had changed 6 months ago. Late meetings, weekend conferences, business trips that stretched longer than they should have. I hadn't questioned it because I'd been busy, because I'd wanted to trust her, because questioning would have required confrontation, and I'd avoided that. Now I looked at everything differently. I opened her company's website, found the staff directory. Greg Paulson, regional sales director. His photo showed the same confident smile from last night. I clicked through to his LinkedIn, Stanford MBA. 15 years in corporate sales, divorced, no kids listed. I closed the laptop. Outside, a car alarm went off. It wailed for 2 minutes before someone silenced it. Saturday passed slowly. She came home in the late afternoon with shopping bags, set them on the counter, microwaved leftovers for dinner. We ate in silence. She scrolled through her phone. I read a book I wasn't absorbing. Sunday was worse. She spent most of the day on the couch, watching something on her tablet with headphones in. I went for a walk. 3 miles through the neighborhood, past identical apartment buildings and chain restaurants. When I got back, she was in the same position. "Where'd you go?" she asked, pulling out one earbud. "Nowhere." She put the earbud back in. Monday morning, I returned to work. I had a meeting with a client in Edison, a logistics firm that needed help streamlining their supply chain. I drove out early, sat through a 2-hour presentation, and provided recommendations they'd probably ignore. On the drive back, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello? Is this the husband?" Male voice, young, amused. "Who is this?" "Just a concerned coworker. Wanted to check in, see how you're doing after Friday night." I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. I declined it. A text came through. "That was rude." I blocked the number. When I got home, she was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open. She glanced up when I entered. "How was work?" she asked. "Fine." "Good." She returned to her screen. I made myself a sandwich. Turkey and cheese. The bread was stale. "I'm going out tomorrow night," she said without looking up. "Team dinner." "All right. Just so you know." "I heard you." She closed her laptop. "You're being weird." "How so?" "You're too calm. It's creepy." I took a bite of my sandwich, chewed, swallowed. "What do you want me to do?" "I don't know. React. Get mad. Something." "Would that make you feel better?" She stood up, grabbing her laptop. "Forget it." She went into the bedroom and closed the door. I finished my sandwich, cleaned the plate, sat on the couch and turned on the television. A nature documentary. Lions hunting gazelles on the Serengeti. The narrator's voice was calm, detached, describing violence like it was weather. I watched until midnight. She never came back out. Tuesday morning, I woke before her again, made coffee, checked my email, 3 new client requests. I responded to all of them with efficient, professional language. She left for work at 8, didn't say goodbye. I spent the day reviewing shipping routes for a client in Pennsylvania. At 3, I received another call, different number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was laughter. Just 30 seconds of someone laughing. Then it cut off. I deleted it. Wednesday, she didn't come home. I texted her at 7. "Where are you?" She replied an hour later. "Staying at Rachel's. Need space." Rachel was a coworker. I'd met her once 2 years ago. She'd been polite but cold. I didn't respond to the text. That night, I opened my laptop again. This time, I wasn't looking at LinkedIn profiles or company directories. I was looking at logistics, patterns, timing. Her company held quarterly reviews. The next one was scheduled for mid-January, 6 weeks away. I pulled up the organizational chart. Greg reported directly to the VP of Sales, a woman named Patricia Hoffman. Patricia reported to the CEO. I opened a new document and started writing. Not a plan. Not yet. Just observations, facts, dates, names, connections. I worked until 3 in the morning. Thursday, she came home. She looked tired. Dark circles under her eyes. She dropped her bag by the door and went straight to the shower. When she emerged, she found me sitting on the couch. "We need to talk," she said. "Okay." She sat in the chair across from me. "I'm not happy." I know. You don't make me happy. I know. Is that all you're going to say? I leaned back. What do you want me to say? Something. Anything. Fight for this. I looked at her, really looked. Her hair was still damp from the shower, she wasn't wearing makeup. She looked younger this way, more like the person I'd married 7 years ago. No, I said. Her eyes widened. No? I'm not going to fight for this. She stood up. Fine, then I'm leaving. Okay. She stared at me, waiting for something. When it didn't come, she turned and walked to the bedroom. I heard drawers opening, zippers she was packing. 20 minutes later, she emerged with a suitcase and 2 bags. I'll come back for the rest later, she said. Take your time. She hesitated at the door. You really don't care? I didn't say that. But you're not going to stop me. No. She shook her head. You're unbelievable. Then she left. I sat on the couch for an hour after she was gone. The apartment was quiet, quieter than it had been in years. Then I went back to my laptop, opened the document I'd started, added more notes. Friday was 3 days away. 3 days since the announcement. That's when the chaos would start. The apartment felt larger without her. Spaces she'd occupied with her presence, counter clutter, closet overflow, bathroom products, now sat empty. I didn't rush to fill them. I liked the emptiness. Friday morning, I woke at 5, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The document I'd been building over the past 3 days now filled 7 pages. Observations, patterns, connections. I wasn't planning anything. Not yet. I was just seeing. Greg Paulson worked in the company's main office downtown. His schedule was public-facing on the company's internal calendar system. I'd found a cached version through a simple search. He had a standing Monday morning meeting with the VP of Sales. Wednesdays, he conducted regional training sessions. Fridays, he left early. My wife's schedule aligned with his, suspiciously so. Late meetings on Mondays. Wednesday evening networking events. Early departures on Fridays. I opened a new tab and searched for the Belmont Conference Center's event calendar. The Christmas party had been booked for 4 hours, 7 to 11. They'd paid for an open bar and catering from a mid-tier vendor. I clicked through to the venue's gallery. Photos of other corporate events, weddings, charity galas. In one photo, I spotted the hallway where I'd encountered her and Greg. The bathroom entrances were clearly visible, positioned directly across from each other, 10 feet apart. They'd walked out together. I closed the laptop and went for a run, 5 miles through the cold morning air. My breath came out in clouds. My legs burned. I pushed harder. When I got back, I showered and dressed. Jeans, dark sweater, work boots. I didn't have client meetings today. I'd cleared my schedule. Instead, I drove downtown. Parked 3 blocks from her company's building, a 12-story glass structure with a lobby full of modern art and uncomfortable furniture. I'd been here once before, 2 years ago, to meet her for lunch. She'd been late. I'd waited in the lobby for 40 minutes. I walked past the building without stopping, noted the entrance, the parking garage access, the coffee shop across the street where employees likely went on breaks. Then I kept walking. Another 6 blocks. I found Greg's apartment building. It wasn't hard. LinkedIn again. People overshared, luxury high-rise, doorman, expensive cars in the garage entrance. I stood across the street for 10 minutes, watched the flow of residents. Then I left. Back home, I made a sandwich, ate it standing at the counter, checked my phone, 3 texts from her. I need to get my winter clothes. Can I come by tomorrow? Please respond. I replied, tomorrow works. I'll be out from 10-2. She responded immediately. Thank you. I didn't reply. That evening, I opened my laptop again. This time, I wasn't gathering information. I was organizing it, creating a timeline. 6 months ago, schedule changes. 4 months ago, first overnight business trip. 3 months ago, new clothes, new perfume, longer hours. 2 months ago, emotional distance, fewer conversations. 1 month ago, separate social media posts. She stopped tagging me. 1 week ago, the invitation. Now, the announcement. I looked at the timeline for a long time. Then I saved the document, closed the laptop, went to bed. Saturday morning, I left the apartment at 9:30, drove to a diner 15 minutes away, ordered eggs and toast, sat in a booth by the window and watched traffic pass. At 10:45, my phone buzzed. Text from her. I'm here, just grabbing a few things. I didn't respond. I stayed at the diner until 1:30, ordered a second coffee, tipped well, drove home slowly. When I arrived, the apartment smelled like her perfume. She'd been and gone. I checked the closet. Half her winter clothes were missing. The bathroom was missing products. She'd taken more than she'd said. On the kitchen counter, she'd left a note. "Thank you for giving me space. I'll be in touch about logistics." I crumpled it and threw it away. Sunday, I worked. Real work, client projects, a delivery schedule that needed reorganizing, an inventory audit. I lost myself in the numbers and systems. It was calming. That evening, I received an email from an unknown sender. No subject line. The body contained a single photo, the Christmas party, her on stage, mid-speech, Greg standing beside the stage, grinning. Whoever sent it wanted a reaction. I deleted the email without replying. Monday morning, I returned to normal operations, met with a client in Clifton, reviewed their warehouse procedures, identified 3 inefficiencies, provided recommendations. They were grateful. I drove back feeling productive. That afternoon, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number. I answered anyway. "Hello?" "Hey, it's Tom, from accounting." I had no idea who Tom was. "Hi. Listen, I just wanted to say sorry about what happened at the party. That was rough, man." "It's fine." "Really? Because honestly, it was pretty messed up. I felt bad for you." "I appreciate that. If you need anything, let me know." "Thanks." I hung up. 2 minutes later, another call, different number. "Is this him?" A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. "Who's calling?" "I work with your wife. I just wanted to say she was out of line. What she did was wrong." "Okay. Are you doing all right?" "I'm fine." "You sure? Because—" I hung up. The calls continued through the afternoon. 6 in total, some sympathetic, some curious. One was just breathing. I stopped answering. That evening, I drove back downtown, parked near her office building, waited. At 6:15, employees started streaming out. I watched faces, didn't see her, didn't see Greg. At 6:45, they emerged together. She was laughing. He had his hand on her lower back. They walked toward the parking garage. I started my car and followed. They drove to a restaurant, Italian, mid-priced. I parked across the street and watched them through the window. They sat at a table near the back, ordered wine, leaned close. She touched his hand. I watched for 30 minutes. Then I drove home. Tuesday, I woke early again, made coffee, opened the laptop, added more notes to the document. The company's structure was clear now. Greg reported to Patricia Hoffman. Patricia was detail-oriented. Her public profile showed awards for operational excellence. She valued procedures, documentation, clean reporting. I opened a new document and started writing. Not fiction, just facts. Formatted professionally, dated, time-stamped. I worked on it for 3 hours. When I finished, I saved it with a simple file name, observations.pdf. Then I closed the laptop and went for another run. Wednesday evening, she texted me, "Can we talk?" I replied, "About what?" "Us. This situation." "What about it?" "I think we should discuss next steps." "Like what?" "Like how we move forward." I didn't respond. She called an hour later. I declined it. She texted, "You're being childish." I still didn't respond. Thursday morning, I received another email. Same unknown sender. Another photo. This one showed her and Greg leaving the restaurant, his arm around her shoulders. I saved the photo. Added it to a folder. That afternoon, I drove past Greg's apartment building again. This time, I parked. Sat in my car. Watched. At 4:30, a black sedan pulled into the garage. I recognized the car. Hers. She stayed for 2 hours. When she left, she was smiling. I drove home. Friday morning, 1 week after the announcement, I woke before dawn, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened the laptop one more time. I reviewed everything. The timeline, the patterns, the documentation, the photos. Then I opened my email, drafted a message. No subject line. In the body, I attached observations.pdf. I entered one recipient, Patricia Hoffman's work email, public information, listed on the company directory. Then I hovered my cursor over send. I thought about her on that stage, her smile, Greg's grin, the laughter. I clicked send. The email whooshed away. I closed the laptop, finished my coffee, went for a run. 3 days were over. Now came the chaos. The email sat in Patricia Hoffman's inbox for 6 hours before she opened it. I knew this because I'd used a read receipt tracker, a simple browser extension that pinged my phone when the email was accessed. The notification came at 2:47 p.m. on Friday. I was in a coffee shop 3 blocks from their office building when my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, message opened, I set down my cup and waited. 17 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code. I answered. Hello? This is Patricia Hoffman from Meridian Communications. I'm trying to reach the person who sent me an email this morning. Her voice was professional, controlled, but there was an edge underneath. Speaking, I said. I'd like to discuss the contents of your email. Are you available to talk? Right now? Preferably. I took a sip of coffee. Let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. I'm available. Good. First, I need to verify your identity. You're listed as married to Jennifer Carver. Is that correct? Jennifer? I rarely thought of her by her full name anymore. That's correct. And you attended our company Christmas party last Friday? I did. I see. Papers rustling in the background. Your email contains some serious allegations about workplace conduct. Before I proceed, I need to ask, what's your intention in sending this information? No intention, I said. Just observations. Observations? Yes. More rustling. The document you attached is quite detailed. Meeting times, locations, specific dates going back 6 months. That's a lot of observation. I pay attention. Clearly. A pause. Mr. Carver, I need to be direct with you. What you've sent me could trigger an internal investigation. Are you prepared for that? I'm not asking for anything. I understand. But once this information is in my hands, I have certain obligations. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. And you still want me to proceed? That's your decision, I said. I'm just providing information. Another pause. Longer this time. I'll need to verify some of these details. If I have questions, can I reach you at this number? Yes. Thank you for your time, Mr. Carver. She hung up. I finished my coffee slowly. Outside, the sky was gray and heavy. Rain was coming. People hurried past the window, heads down, collars up. I paid and left. The drive home took 20 minutes. Traffic was light. I parked in my usual spot and climbed the stairs to the apartment. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. Empty, quiet, mine. I made dinner, chicken breast, rice, steamed broccoli. Ate it standing at the counter while reading news on my phone. A train derailment in Ohio, a political scandal, a celebrity engagement, nothing that mattered. At 8 p.m., my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. We need to talk. This is Greg. I stared at the message for 10 seconds. Then I replied, About what? You know what? Don't play games. I don't know what you're referring to. The email you sent to Patricia, that was low. I sent information, that's all. You're trying to cause problems. I'm not trying to do anything. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Meet me tomorrow. We should talk face to face. I thought about it. Typed, Where? The parking garage at 1515 Market Street, level 3, 10 a.m. I'll be there. No response. I set the phone down and went to bed. Slept better than I had in weeks. Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. I dressed in jeans and a heavy jacket. Left the apartment at 9:30, drove downtown through light weekend traffic. The parking garage at 1515 Market Street was attached to a shopping complex, half empty on weekends. I took the ramp up to level 3 and found a spot near the elevator. Parked, turned off the engine, sat there. At 9:58, a black sedan pulled up 2 rows over. Greg got out. He was wearing a leather jacket and designer jeans. Sunglasses, despite the dim garage lighting. He walked toward my car. I got out. We stood 15 feet apart. The garage was silent except for the distant hum of ventilation fans. You came, he said. You asked. He took off his sunglasses. His eyes were red-rimmed, tired. What's your game here? No game. Then why did you send that email? I thought Patricia should have accurate information. Accurate? He laughed, sharp, bitter. You're trying to torpedo my career because your feelings are hurt. My feelings have nothing to do with this. Right. He stepped closer. Let me explain something to you. Jennifer and I are together now. That's reality. You can accept it or you can make it difficult, but the outcome is the same. Okay. He frowned. That's it? What do you want me to say? I want you to back off. Stop sending emails, stop making trouble, move on with your life. I put my hands in my pockets. Are you threatening me? I'm giving you advice. Sounds like a threat. His jaw tightened. You don't know who you're dealing with. Stanford MBA, 15 years in sales, divorced. No kids, leased BMW, apartment in the Riverside Tower. You moved in 2 years ago. Rent is $2,800 a month. You're 3 months behind on payments. His face went white. How do you... Public records. Credit reports aren't as private as people think. You looked into me? I looked at available information. You're insane. I'm thorough. He took another step forward. Now we were 10 feet apart, close enough that I could see a vein pulsing in his temple. This is harassment. No, harassment would be following you, calling you repeatedly, threatening you. I've done none of those things. You sent information about me to my boss. I sent observations to someone who has oversight responsibility. That's not harassment, that's reporting. Reporting what? There's nothing to report. Then you have nothing to worry about. His hands clenched into fists. He looked like he wanted to swing. I didn't move, just watched him. Jennifer warned me about you, he said finally. Said you were passive-aggressive, cold. She said living with you was like living with a ghost. She's not wrong. You don't even care, do you? That she's gone? I care about a lot of things. She's not one of them anymore. He shook his head. You're a piece of work. So I've been told. This isn't over. Probably not. He turned and walked back toward his car. Got in. The engine roared to life. He reversed out of the spot too quickly, tires squealing. Then he was gone. I stood there for another minute. Then I got back in my car. But I didn't leave. I drove down to level 1, parked near the exit. Waited. 20 minutes later, a silver Honda pulled in. I recognized it immediately. Hers. She parked on level 2. I watched through my rearview mirror as she walked toward the elevator. She was carrying shopping bags. Looked relaxed. Happy. She took the elevator up. I got out of my car and walked to hers. The Honda was old. 7 years. She'd been meaning to replace it, but never did. The driver's side door had a small dent from a parking lot incident 2 years ago. I walked around the car slowly. Checked the tires, looked in the windows, noticed a parking ticket on the dashboard. Expired meter from 3 days ago. Then I took out my keys. My key ring had a small multi-tool attached. I'd bought it years ago for work. It had a knife blade, a screwdriver, a file. I looked around. The garage was empty. No cameras visible on this level. I knelt beside the driver's side rear tire, pressed the knife blade against the valve stem. Air began to hiss out. I stood up, walked back to my car, got in, started the engine, drove out of the garage without looking back. On the way home, I stopped at a hardware store, bought zip ties, duct tape, a heavy-duty padlock, paid cash. Back at the apartment, I put the items in a closet, closed the door, then I made lunch. My phone buzzed at 2:15 p.m. Text from her. Did you do something to my car? I replied. What do you mean? My tire was flat in the parking garage. The valve stem is damaged. That's unfortunate. Did you do it? I haven't been near your car. You're lying. Believe what you want, she called. I declined it. Another text. Greg told me you met with him. What did you say? Ask him. I'm asking you. We had a conversation, that's all. About what? General topics. You're being impossible. I didn't respond. She called again. I declined again. 10 minutes later, another text. This one from Greg's number. Stay away from Jennifer's car. Stay away from her. If I find out you've been near either of us again, I'm calling the police. I replied, for what? I haven't done anything. Vandalism. Proof? No response. I set the phone down and turned on the television. Found a documentary about deep-sea exploration. Watched it until evening. At 7 p.m., my phone rang. Patricia Hoffman. I answered. Hello? Mr. Carver, I wanted to update you on the situation. I've spent the day reviewing the information you provided. I also conducted preliminary interviews with several staff members. Okay. What I've found corroborates many of your observations. Meeting schedules, timeline discrepancies. There are also some policy concerns regarding workplace relationships that weren't properly disclosed. I see. I'll be conducting formal interviews next week. I wanted you to be aware that this may become more visible within the company. That's fine. I also need to inform you that both Jennifer and Mr. Paulson have been made aware that an inquiry is underway. They know information was provided by an external source, but I haven't disclosed your name. They've already figured it out. I suspected as much. A pause. Mr. Carver, I need to ask, are you in contact with either of them? Minimal. I'd recommend keeping it that way, for your own protection. Noted. One more thing. Mr. Paulson filed a complaint this afternoon alleging harassment. He claims you've been following him and damaged personal property. Is there any truth to that? No. You're certain? I met him once at his request, in a public parking garage. We had a conversation. That's the extent of our interaction. And the property damage? I don't know anything about that. Another pause. All right. I'll document your response. If anything changes, or if you experience any retaliation, please contact me immediately. I will. Thank you, Mr. Carver. She hung up. I sat on the couch, turned off the television, listened to the silence. The first pressure point had been applied. Now I needed to wait and see how they responded. Sunday was quiet. I worked on client projects, organized files, caught up on emails, no calls, no texts, nothing from her or Greg. The silence felt intentional, like they were regrouping, planning their next move. I went for a long run in the afternoon, 8 miles, pushed until my legs burned and my lungs ached, came back drenched in sweat, showered, made dinner. At 9 p.m., I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, "You're making a mistake." I opened it. The body contained a single paragraph. Whatever you think you're accomplishing, you're not. You're just making yourself look pathetic. Everyone at the company knows what you did. They're laughing at you. The husband who couldn't keep his wife. The man who got embarrassed in public and is now trying to get revenge like a child. Grow up. Move on. Jennifer has. No signature. I read it twice. Then I traced the email header. It had been sent from a public library computer in Newark, untraceable to a specific person. I deleted it without responding. Monday morning, I woke to 17 missed calls, all from unknown numbers. No voicemails. I checked my email, 6 new messages, all from burner addresses, all variations of the same theme: pathetic, desperate, embarrassing. Someone was running a campaign. I blocked the numbers, marked the emails as spam, went about my day, had a meeting in Morristown, reviewed distribution channels for a furniture company, provided cost-cutting recommendations. They were grateful, invited me to lunch. I declined politely. On the drive back, my phone rang. Patricia Hoffman again. Mr. Carver, we need to talk. What's wrong? I received a formal complaint this morning from Jennifer. She's alleging that you've been sending her threatening messages and stalking her. That's not true. She provided screenshots, text messages, emails. Then they're fabricated. That's a serious accusation. So is hers. A long pause. I need you to come in for a meeting. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. Why? Because I need to hear your side directly, and because if these allegations escalate, it could complicate the inquiry. I haven't done anything wrong. Then you should have no problem explaining that in person. I gripped the steering wheel. Fine, I'll be there. Thank you. She hung up. I drove home in silence. My jaw ached from clenching it. Back at the apartment, I opened my laptop, checked my sent messages, reviewed my text logs. Everything was there, documented, time-stamped. I had records of every communication, every exchange, nothing threatening, nothing inappropriate. If they were going to fabricate evidence, I'd counter it with real evidence. I spent the evening organizing everything into a single folder. Screenshots, call logs, email threads, saved it all to a USB drive. Then I called a lawyer, a guy I'd worked with 3 years ago on a contract dispute. His name was Paul Berger. He was expensive, but competent. He answered on the 3rd ring. This is Paul. Paul, it's me. I need advice. What kind of advice? I explained the situation. The party, the email, the allegations. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for 10 seconds. You're playing a dangerous game, he said finally. I know. You understand that if they push harassment charges, this could become legal? Yes. And you're prepared for that? I am. All right. Here's what you do. Don't communicate with either of them anymore. At all. No texts, no calls, nothing. Document everything. If they contact you, save it. Don't respond. And tomorrow, when you go to this meeting, bring copies of all your records. Be calm. Be factual. Don't let them rattle you. Okay. And call me immediately after. I want to know what happens. I will. Good luck. He hung up. I set the phone down, looked around the empty apartment, felt the weight of what I'd started settling over me. but I didn't feel regret. I felt focused. Tuesday morning arrived cold and bright. I dressed in a suit, dark gray, white shirt, no tie, professional but not formal. I left early, drove downtown through rush hour traffic, found parking 2 blocks from their building. At 9:55 a.m., I walked into the lobby, approached the reception desk. "I have a meeting with Patricia Hoffman," I said. The receptionist checked her computer. "Name?" "Carver." She nodded. "10th floor. Take the elevator on your left." I rode up in silence. The elevator was empty except for me. The walls were mirrored. I looked at my reflection, saw a man I barely recognized, harder, colder. The doors opened. Patricia's office was at the end of a long hallway. Glass walls, modern furniture. She sat behind a wide desk, typing on a laptop. I knocked. She looked up. "Mr. Carver, come in." I entered. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. I sat. "Thank you for coming," she said. "You asked me to." "I did." She closed her laptop. "I'm going to be direct. Jennifer has made serious allegations. She claims you've been harassing her, sending threatening messages, following her. She's frightened?" "I haven't done any of those things." "She has evidence." "Then it's fabricated." "That's a strong claim." "It's the truth." She studied me. "Show me your evidence." I pulled out the USB drive, handed it to her. Everything is there: text logs, call records, email threads, time-stamped, verified. She plugged it into her laptop, opened the files, started scrolling. I sat quietly, waited. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, she looked up. "This contradicts what she's claiming." "Yes. These timestamps show your communications were minimal and never threatening." "Correct." "And you're saying the screenshots she provided are false?" "I'm saying I never sent those messages." She leaned back in her chair. "This is complicated. Only if you believe her." "I have to investigate both sides." "Then investigate. You'll find I'm telling the truth." Another pause. "Mr. Carver, can I ask you something off the record?" "Sure." "What are you hoping to accomplish here?" I met her eyes. "Nothing." "That's not true." "It is. I sent you information because it was accurate. What you do with it is your decision." "But you knew it would cause problems." "I knew it might. That doesn't change the fact that it's true." She sighed. "You're in a difficult position." "I'm aware. If this escalates, it could become messy, legal, public." "I understand." "And you're prepared for that?" "Yes." She nodded slowly. "All right. I'll continue the investigation. I'll verify the communications she's claiming. If they're fabricated, that's a serious issue. If they're real, we'll have a different conversation." "Fair enough. In the meantime, I'm advising you, again, to avoid contact with Jennifer or Mr. Paulson. Let this process play out." "I intend to." "Good." She stood, extended her hand. "Thank you for your cooperation." I shook her hand. Left the office. In the elevator, I felt my phone buzz. Text from an unknown number. "You think you're clever. You're not. This ends badly for you." I deleted it without responding. Outside, the morning had turned gray. Wind cut through the streets. I walked back to my car with my head down, hands in my pockets. This was far from over. But I'd applied the first pressure point. Now I needed to wait for the cracks to spread. The cracks appeared faster than I expected. Wednesday morning, I received a call from a number I recognized. Tom from accounting, the one who'd called to apologize after the party. "Hey, man," he said when I answered. "I wanted to give you a heads up about something." "What's that?" "People are talking. About the investigation. About you." "What are they saying?" "Different things. Some people think you're justified, that what Jennifer did was wrong and you're just defending yourself. But others..." He trailed off. "Others what?" "Others think you're being vindictive, that you're trying to ruin her career because she left you." "I see." "I don't know what the truth is," he said, "but I thought you should know what's circulating." "I appreciate it." "Yeah. Good luck, man." He hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the wall. This was expected. Narratives fracture when pressure is applied. People choose sides, some based on facts, most based on feelings. I went for a run. 6 miles, came back and showered, made breakfast, eggs, toast, black coffee. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from her. "We need to talk. In person." I stared at the message. Paul had told me not to engage. but she was reaching out. That meant something had shifted. I replied, "About what?" "Everything, please." "Where?" "The coffee shop on 3rd and Vine, 2 p.m. I thought about it. Public place, daytime, witnesses. "I'll be there. Thank you." I called Paul immediately. "She wants to meet," I said. "Don't go." "I'm going." "That's a bad idea." "It's a public place. I'll record the conversation on my phone. If she tries anything, I'll have proof." He sighed. "Fine, but record everything. Don't let her provoke you, and call me right after." "Will do." I spent the next 2 hours preparing. Charged my phone, tested the voice recorder app, made sure it worked. At 1:45 p.m., I left the apartment, drove to 3rd and Vine. The coffee shop was small, independent, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. I arrived at 1:55, ordered black coffee, found a table near the window, sat with my back to the wall. She arrived at 2:03. She looked different, tired. Her hair wasn't styled, no makeup. She wore jeans and a sweater. The red dress and confidence from the party were gone. She sat across from me without ordering anything. "Thanks for coming," she said. "You asked." "I know." She folded her hands on the table. "This has gotten out of hand." "Has it?" "Yes. The investigation, the rumors. People at work won't stop talking. It's affecting my job." "That's unfortunate." She looked at me. Really looked. "You're not going to make this easy, are you?" "Make what easy?" "This conversation. You're going to sit there and be cold and sarcastic and act like none of this matters." "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to talk to me like a human being." I took a sip of coffee, set the cup down carefully. "Okay. What do you want to talk about?" "I want this to stop. The investigation, the emails, the drama. I want us to figure out a way to move forward without destroying each other." "I'm not trying to destroy you." "Really? Because it feels like you are." "I sent factual information to someone in a position of oversight. That's all." "That's all?" Her voice rose slightly. A couple at the next table glanced over. She lowered her voice. "You knew what would happen. You knew it would start an investigation. You knew it would hurt my career." "Your actions hurt your career, not mine." "My actions? I fell in love with someone. That's not a crime." "You're right, it's not. But conducting a relationship with a coworker without proper disclosure violates company policy. And humiliating your husband in public at a work event is poor judgment." She flinched. "That was a mistake." "Yes, it was. I was caught up in the moment. Everyone was drinking. It seemed funny at the time. To you, not to me." "I know, and I'm sorry." The words hung between us. Sorry. 2 syllables. Too late. "Okay," I said. "That's it, okay? What else do you want?" "I want you to call off the investigation." "I can't. I don't control it." "You started it." "No, I provided information. Patricia Hoffman started it. That's her job." She leaned forward. "Please, if you ever cared about me, if you ever loved me, stop this. I'm begging you." I looked at her, saw the desperation in her eyes, felt nothing. "I did love you," I said. Past tense. "So that's it? You just stop?" "You stopped first. I'm just catching up." She sat back, blinked rapidly. Her eyes were wet. "I didn't want it to be like this." "Then you shouldn't have made it like this." "What does that mean?" "The party, the announcement, the public humiliation. You chose that, not me." "I told you, that was a mistake." "It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. You wanted everyone to know. You wanted to establish your new relationship publicly. You wanted validation, and you got it. Now you're dealing with the consequences." "What consequences? I fell in love. People do that." "People also follow rules, procedures. You and Greg didn't." "So you're punishing us?" "I'm not punishing anyone. The company is investigating policy violations. That's their decision." She wiped her eyes. "You're enjoying this?" "No. I don't believe you." "That's your choice." We sat in silence for 30 seconds. The coffee shop door opened. A woman came in with a stroller. The barista greeted her by name. "What do you want?" she asked finally. "From me. From this situation." "What outcome are you looking for?" I thought about it. "Nothing." "That's not an answer." "It is. I don't want anything from you. I'm just living my life. While mine falls apart. Your life isn't falling apart. You're facing consequences. There's a difference." She stood up abruptly. This was pointless. You asked for the meeting. I thought you'd be reasonable. I am being reasonable. No, you're being cruel. She grabbed her bag and walked out. The door closed hard behind her. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finished my coffee, left a tip, walked out. In my car, I called Paul. How'd it go? He asked. She wanted me to stop the investigation. And? I told her I can't control it. Good. Did she threaten you? No, she begged. Even better, you have it recorded? Yes. Send it to me. I hung up and forwarded the audio file. Then I drove home. That evening, my phone started buzzing. Text after text. Different numbers. Anonymous. You're pathetic. Leave her alone. Everyone knows what you're doing. You're embarrassing yourself. I blocked each number. They kept coming. At 9 p.m., someone called from a blocked number. I answered. Heavy breathing, then a voice. Male. Altered. Probably through an app. You need to back off. I hung up. They called back. I declined it. Another text. Answer your phone. I turned off my phone and went to bed. Thursday morning, I woke to silence. Checked my phone. 43 missed calls, 29 texts, all overnight, all anonymous. I scrolled through them. Variations on the same theme, threats, insults, accusations. Someone was orchestrating this. Probably Greg, possibly her, maybe both. I forwarded everything to Paul and Patricia. Then I went for a run. When I got back, Patricia had called twice. I called her back. Mr. Carver, she said, I received your messages. This is harassment. I agree. Do you know who's behind it? I have theories. I'm documenting everything. This supports your claim that you're being targeted. Good. It also means this situation is escalating. I need you to be careful. I am. If you feel threatened, contact the police. Noted. She hung up. I made breakfast, checked emails, had 3 new client requests, responded professionally. At noon, I received a call from an unknown local number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this Mr. Carver? A woman's voice, older, professional. Yes. This is Linda Chen from HR at Meridian Communications. I need to inform you that Jennifer Carver has filed a restraining order request against you. My hand tightened around the phone. On what grounds? She's claiming harassment and stalking. There will be a hearing next week. You'll receive official notice in the mail. I haven't harassed or followed anyone. That will be determined at the hearing. I'm just informing you as a courtesy. Thank you. She hung up. I sat down, stared at the wall. A restraining order. That was aggressive. That was escalation. It was also desperation. I called Paul immediately. They're going for a restraining order, I said. Expected, we'll fight it. You have documentation proving you haven't been stalking her. What about the meeting yesterday? She requested it. You have it recorded. That actually helps us. Okay. Don't worry. These things rarely stick when there's no evidence. She's panicking. That's good for us. If you say so. I do. Sit tight. I'll handle it. I hung up and went back to work. Finished a logistics report, sent it to a client, got positive feedback. By evening, the anonymous messages had stopped. Either they'd given up or they were regrouping. I ordered takeout, Chinese. Ate it while watching a documentary about World War II. The narrator described strategic mistakes, how overconfidence led to defeat, how patience won wars. I fell asleep on the couch. Friday morning, I woke to my phone ringing, unknown number. Hello? It's Tom, from accounting. Hey, I wanted to let you know. Greg got called into Patricia's office yesterday. He was in there for over an hour. When he came out, he looked furious. What happened? Don't know, but rumor is they found discrepancies in his expense reports. Like big ones, stuff going back months. Interesting. Yeah, people are saying he might be in serious trouble. Thanks for letting me know. No problem. This whole thing is crazy. He hung up. I sat there, processing. Expense report discrepancies. That wasn't something I'd uncovered. But if Patricia was digging, she was finding more than just policy violations. Systems always had weaknesses. People got sloppy, especially when they thought they were untouchable. I made coffee, checked my email, found a message from Patricia, subject line, update. I opened it. Mr. Carver, investigation continuing. New findings have emerged unrelated to your initial report. We'll update you as appropriate. Please continue to avoid contact with both parties. PH. I read it 3 times. New findings. Unrelated to my initial report. which meant Greg had bigger problems than an undisclosed workplace relationship. I closed the laptop and smiled. The cracks were spreading faster than I'd anticipated. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. in municipal court. Paul met me outside the building at 8:45. He wore a sharp suit and carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my rent. "You ready?" he asked. "Yeah. Remember, stay calm. Don't react to anything she says. Let me do the talking." "Got it." We walked inside. The building smelled like floor polish and stale coffee. Security waved us through metal detectors. We took an elevator to the 3rd floor. The courtroom was small, wooden benches, an American flag in the corner, a tired-looking bailiff standing near the judge's bench. She was already there, sitting in the front row with her own lawyer, a woman in her 40s wearing a burgundy suit. They were talking in low voices. Greg was there too, sitting a few rows back. He saw me enter and his expression hardened. I sat on the opposite side of the room. Paul sat beside me, opened his briefcase and pulled out folders. At 9 a.m. exactly, the judge entered. Everyone stood. He was older, gray hair, reading glasses perched on his nose. "Please be seated," he said. "Case number 47B, Carver versus Carver. Petition for temporary restraining order." Her lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client Jennifer Carver is petitioning for a temporary restraining order against her estranged husband. She has been subjected to ongoing harassment, stalking, and threatening behavior that has caused her significant emotional distress." The judge looked at his papers. "What evidence do you have?" "We have documentation, Your Honor, text messages, witness statements, records of unwanted contact." "Let me see them." The lawyer approached the bench, handed over a folder. The judge opened it, read silently for 2 minutes. Then he looked at me. "Mr. Carver, do you have representation?" Paul stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Paul Berger, representing the respondent." "And your response to these allegations?" "Complete denial, Your Honor. My client has not harassed, stalked, or threatened Mrs. Carver. In fact, we have evidence that Mrs. Carver and her associates have been engaged in a coordinated harassment campaign against my client." The judge raised an eyebrow. "That's a serious counter-allegation." "We have documentation to support it, Your Honor." "Approach." Paul walked to the bench, handed over his own folder. The judge read. The courtroom was silent. I could hear someone coughing in the hallway. The bailiff shifted his weight. Finally, the judge looked up. "These communications contradict each other." "Yes, Your Honor," Paul said, "which is why we believe some of the evidence presented by the petitioner may not be authentic." Her lawyer stood quickly. "That's absurd, Your Honor. We have screenshots." "I can see what you have," the judge said. "I can also see what Mr. Berger has provided. Timestamps, metadata, call logs from the phone company." "Your Honor, my client is frightened. I'm sure she is. But I need to determine if that fear is reasonable based on actual evidence, not fabricated messages." Her lawyer's face reddened. "We're not fabricating. I'm not making that determination yet, but I am seeing significant discrepancies." He looked at both lawyers. "I'm ordering a 2-week continuance. During this time, I want both parties to submit to forensic analysis of their electronic devices. I want verified records from service providers. I want to know exactly who sent what and when." "Your Honor," her lawyer started. "That's my ruling. 2 weeks. We'll reconvene on the 27th. Until then, both parties are ordered to maintain 0 contact. No calls, no texts, no social media, no in-person encounters. Understood?" "Yes, Your Honor," Paul said. "Yes, Your Honor," her lawyer echoed reluctantly. "Good. Court adjourned." The judge stood. Everyone stood. He left through a side door. I turned to Paul. "What just happened?" "We bought time, and we raised doubt about her evidence. That's a win." Across the room, she was talking urgently with her lawyer. Her face was pale. The lawyer was shaking her head. Greg approached them, said something. Her lawyer looked at him sharply and said something that made him step back. "Let's go," Paul said. We left the courtroom. Outside in the hallway, Paul stopped. "Listen to me carefully. You won this round. But don't get cocky. The forensic analysis will expose any fake messages she submitted. That helps you, but it also means they're going to get desperate." "Desperate how?" "I don't know, but desperate people make mistakes. Be careful. Document everything. And for God's sake, follow the judge's order, 0 contact." "I will." "Good." He checked his watch. "I have another hearing. Call me if anything happens." He walked away. I took the elevator down, walked outside into cold air, stood on the courthouse steps for a minute. Then I drove to a diner, ordered eggs and coffee, sat in a booth, and processed what had happened. The judge had questioned her evidence. That meant he was skeptical. That meant I had leverage. But Paul was right. They'd get desperate. I finished my breakfast and drove home. That evening, Tom called again. "Big news," he said. "What?" "Greg got suspended, like effective immediately. Security walked him out this afternoon." "Why?" "The expense report thing. Apparently he was billing personal expenses to the company. Hotel rooms, dinners, even a weekend trip to Atlantic City. Thousands of dollars." "How'd they figure it out?" "Patricia started digging after your initial report. Found way more than she expected." "Is he coming back?" "Doubtful. They're talking termination. Legal might even get involved." I absorbed this. "What about Jennifer?" "She's still there, but people are avoiding her. She had a breakdown in the break room yesterday, started crying. Someone said she locked herself in the bathroom for an hour." "Thanks for the update." "Yeah, man, this is wild." He hung up. I sat on the couch, turned on the television, found nothing worth watching, turned it off. Greg's suspension wasn't my doing directly, but it was a consequence of the pressure I'd applied. Once Patricia started looking, she found everything. Systems reveal themselves when stress is applied. That night, I slept well. Wednesday morning, I woke to 37 missed calls, all from the same unknown number. I checked my voicemail, 16 messages, all from her. The first few were angry, accusations, blame. By message 10, she was crying. By message 15, she was begging. "Please pick up. Please, I need to talk to you. Greg lost his job. Everything is falling apart. I know we're not supposed to talk, but I don't know what else to do. Please." I deleted all of them. Then I called Paul. "She left me 17 voicemails," I said. "Don't listen to them. Forward them to me." "Already did." "Good. This violates the judge's order. She initiated contact. That helps us." "What should I do?" "Nothing. Don't respond. Don't acknowledge. Let her dig her own hole." "Okay." I spent the day working. Real work. Client projects, logistics, numbers, systems. At 3 p.m., my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Greg. He was standing in the hallway, looked disheveled, unshaven. His eyes were red. I didn't open the door. "I know you're in there," he said through the door. "Open up." I stayed silent. "We need to talk. Man to man." I took out my phone, started recording video through the peephole. "This is your fault," he said. His voice was shaking. "Everything. My job, my reputation. You destroyed my life because you're a bitter, pathetic excuse for a man." I said nothing. "Say something." He pounded on the door. Once, twice. The frame rattled. I kept recording. "Fine. Hide in there. But this isn't over. You hear me? This isn't over." He kicked the door, left a scuff mark. Then he walked away. I stopped recording. Saved the video. Sent it to Paul immediately. He called back within 2 minutes. "Did he threaten you?" "On camera, at my door." "Perfect. I'm filing a police report and a counter-restraining order. He just handed us everything we need." "What happens now?" "You sit tight. Don't answer the door. Don't engage. Let me handle it." I hung up. For the rest of the evening, I stayed inside, ordered delivery, ate in silence, watched the door. At 11 p.m., police knocked. I opened up, showed them my ID, showed them the video. "We're here about a disturbance report," one officer said. "That was him," I said, pointing to the video. "He came to my door, made threats, damaged property." They watched the video, made notes. "We'll follow up," the officer said. "Do you want to press charges?" "Yes." "All right, we'll be in touch." They left. I locked the door, checked all the windows, sat on the couch. My phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "You won. Congratulations. I hope you're happy." I stared at the message. It was from her. Had to be. I didn't respond. Another text. "Greg lost everything. I might lose my job. All because you couldn't let go." I blocked the number, but I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. Thursday morning, Paul called. "Greg was arrested last night. Trespassing and terroristic threats. He made bail this morning, but there's a restraining order in place now. He can't come near you or your residence." "Good." The forensic analysis came back on the text messages. Half of what Jennifer submitted were fabricated, created using fake screenshot apps. The judge is not happy. What does that mean? It means her restraining order petition will be denied. It also means she could face charges for filing false evidence. Will she? Probably not, but her credibility is destroyed, which helps you. Okay, there's more. Greg's termination is official. He's also being investigated for expense fraud. Could be criminal charges. I said nothing. You still there? Paul asked. Yeah. This is what you wanted, right? I didn't want anything. I just wanted truth. Well, you got it, along with some collateral damage. Apparently. Listen, the restraining order hearing next week is a formality now. The judge will deny her petition and probably issue a warning. After that, you're free and clear. Thanks, Paul. You did good. Stay smart. He hung up. I sat there, stared at the wall. Greg was finished. Her credibility was ruined. The investigation had uncovered fraud. Everything was falling apart for them, exactly as I'd known it would once the pressure started. But this wasn't the end. This was just the false victory. The moment they thought they'd hit bottom, they hadn't, not yet. The restraining order hearing was exactly as Paul predicted. 15 minutes of the judge reviewing evidence, looking increasingly annoyed, and finally denying Jennifer's petition. With a warning about wasting the court's time, her lawyer tried to salvage something, but the judge cut her off mid-sentence. Counselor, your client submitted fabricated evidence. Be grateful I'm not referring this for prosecution. Petition denied. Both parties are free to go about their lives. Court adjourned. The gavel came down. I walked out of the courthouse into bright winter sunshine. Paul clapped me on the shoulder. That's it. You're done. Free and clear. Thanks for everything. Just send me a check. He grinned. And maybe don't start any more wars. I'll try. He left. I stood on the courthouse steps for a moment, watching people come and go. Lawyers in expensive suits, families dealing with custody battles, people whose lives were intersecting with the legal system in 1,000 different ways. I drove home feeling nothing in particular. Not victory, not satisfaction. Just a kind of hollow completion. Back at the apartment, I opened my laptop and checked email. 4 new client requests. I responded to each one methodically. Scheduled calls, set up meetings, work continued, life continued. But something felt unfinished. That evening, Tom called. Hey, wanted to give you one last update. What's up? Jennifer's on administrative leave. Effective today. HR is reviewing her conduct during the investigation. What conduct? The fabricated evidence thing. Plus there's questions about whether she knew about Greg's expense fraud. Apparently she signed off on some of his reports. Did she know? That's what they're trying to figure out. Could be innocent, could be complicity. Either way, she's in trouble. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah. Hey, for what it's worth. A lot of people here think she had this coming. What she did at the party was messed up. I appreciate that. Take care, man. He hung up. I made dinner. Grilled chicken, rice, vegetables. Ate slowly, methodically. Cleaned the dishes. Sat on the couch. Turned on the television. Turned it off. The apartment was too quiet. I went to bed early but couldn't sleep. Lay there staring at the ceiling, thinking. Everything had unfolded logically. Patricia's investigation had done exactly what investigations do. Uncovered truth. Greg's expense fraud was real. Jennifer's fabricated evidence was real. The consequences were natural results of their own actions. I hadn't manufactured anything. I just applied pressure to a system that was already compromised. But something was bothering me. I got up, went to the kitchen, poured water, stood at the window looking out at the street. Empty. Dark. A single car passed. Then I understood what was bothering me. The expense fraud. The timing. Greg had been billing personal expenses for months, maybe longer. But the investigation had only started 2 weeks ago, triggered by my initial email about the undisclosed relationship. Patricia hadn't been looking for fraud. She'd been verifying my observations about meeting schedules and policy violations. So how did she find the expense discrepancies? I went back to my laptop. Opened the original document I'd sent her. Read through it carefully. Meeting times, dates, schedule overlaps. Nothing about expenses. I opened a browser, searched for Meridian Communications expense reporting system, found a cached page from their employee portal, read the procedures. All expenses required manager approval. Regional sales directors like Greg reported to the VP of sales. Patricia Hoffman, which meant Patricia had already approved his expenses. She'd known about them before I sent my email. I sat back. Patricia had known about the fraud. She'd approved it, either knowingly or through negligence. And when my email arrived, she'd used it as an opportunity to expose Greg and distance herself from the problem. She'd thrown him under the bus. I closed the laptop slowly. The investigation hadn't been about truth. It had been about protecting herself. And I'd been the convenient catalyst. I went back to bed. This time, I slept. Friday morning, I went for a long run. 8 miles, pushed hard. Came back drenched in sweat and feeling clearer, showered, made coffee, checked my phone, text from an unknown number. Can we talk? Please? Not about the case. About something else. Jennifer. I stared at the message. The restraining order was denied. Legally, we could communicate now. But Paul's advice echoed, don't engage. Still, something else. I replied, about what? Response came immediately. Greg, I found something. I don't know who else to tell. I waited 30 seconds. Then, what did you find? Not over text. Can we meet? Please, I know you have no reason to help me, but this is important. I should have said no, should have deleted the message and moved on. Instead, I typed, where? The diner on Route 3, the one near the old mall, 1 hour? I'll be there. I called Paul immediately. Don't do it, he said. I'm doing it. Then record everything, and I mean everything. If this goes sideways, you need documentation. Understood. I dressed, jeans, jacket, checked my phone's battery, 78%. Good enough. The drive took 40 minutes. The diner was one of those chrome and neon places that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1985. Half the booths were empty. A waitress refilled coffee for a trucker at the counter. Jennifer was already there, sitting in a booth at the back. She looked worse than she had at the courthouse. Dark circles, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She was wearing a zip-up hoodie and yoga pants. Nothing like the polished professional I'd known. I slid into the booth across from her. Thanks for coming, she said. What did you find? She looked around nervously. I need you to understand something first. I didn't know about the expense fraud. I never looked at his reports closely. I just trusted him. Okay. But after he got arrested, I went to his apartment. He gave me a key months ago. I wanted to get some of my things I'd left there. And? I found files, physical files, hidden in the back of his closet, records of expenses, but not just his expenses. I leaned forward slightly. Whose? Multiple people, including Patricia. I went very still. What kind of expenses? Luxury hotels, first-class flights, expensive dinners, all billed to the company under fake client meetings. Greg was keeping copies as, I don't know, insurance? Leverage? How much are we talking about? Tens of thousands, maybe more, going back 3 years. I processed this. Patricia was committing fraud, and Greg was documenting it. Yes, and now she's thrown him under the bus while hiding her own involvement. Why are you telling me this? She met my eyes. Because I'm going to lose my job either way. If Patricia's investigating me, it's because she's trying to tie me to Greg's fraud to protect herself. But I didn't do anything wrong, and neither did you. We're both just collateral damage. What do you want me to do? I don't know. Expose her? I just know that what she's doing isn't right. I sat back, thought about it. Where are these files now? Still at Greg's apartment. I didn't take them. I was scared. Does anyone else know about them? Just you. Does Greg know you found them? I don't think so. He's been in jail. He made bail, but I haven't talked to him. I drummed my fingers on the table. If Patricia finds out about these files, they'll disappear. I know. Which means someone needs to secure them before that happens. She looked at me. Would you? Why would I do that? Because you care about truth. That's what started all of this, right? You wanted people to know the truth about me and Greg? Well, here's more truth. Patricia is corrupt. She's using her position to enrich herself and destroying people who get in her way. That doesn't affect me. It does if she comes after you next. I considered this. She has no reason to come after me? She has every reason. You started the investigation that's unraveling her whole operation. You think she doesn't know that? Valid point. I looked at Jennifer. Really looked at her. She seemed genuine, scared, desperate. But I'd been wrong about people before. I'll think about it, I said. There's not much time. Once Greg gets out and realizes I was at his apartment, he'll move those files. When does he get out? I don't know. Could be today, could be tomorrow. I slid out of the booth. I'll be in touch. Wait. I walked out before she could finish. In my car, I sat for 5 minutes, thinking. This was the twist. The thing I hadn't seen coming. The investigation wasn't just about Jennifer and Greg. It was about a larger pattern of corruption. And Patricia had used my email as a way to eliminate Greg while protecting herself. I started the engine and drove, but I didn't go home. I drove to the Riverside Tower, Greg's apartment building, parked across the street. I watched the entrance. At 2 p.m., a black SUV pulled up. A woman got out. Early 50s, gray suit, professional. She walked into the building like she owned it. I took photos. She emerged 30 minutes later, carrying a briefcase, got back in the SUV and drove away. I checked the photos, zoomed in. The license plate was visible. I ran it through a public records database on my phone. Registered to Hoffman Consulting LLC, Patricia's company. She'd already been to Greg's apartment, which meant she either knew about the files or suspected they existed. But had she found them? I called Jennifer. "Did you move the files?" I asked. "What? No, I told you." "Where exactly were they hidden?" "In his closet, behind a shoe rack. There's a false panel." "Describe it." "The panel is at the back left corner. You have to remove the rack and push on the panel. It slides sideways." "Would someone find it if they were just searching the apartment normally?" "Probably not. It's pretty well hidden." "Okay." I hung up. Patricia had been to the apartment, but if the files were well hidden, she might not have found them, which meant they were still there. I needed to get them before Greg did. I drove home, changed into darker clothes, black jeans, black jacket, grabbed a backpack, waited until after dark. At 9 p.m., I drove back to the Riverside Tower. The lobby had a doorman. I couldn't just walk in. I parked and watched, waited for someone to enter or exit. At 9:45, a couple came out. I walked toward the entrance as they left, caught the door before it closed. The doorman was turned away, talking to someone on the phone. I slipped inside, took the stairs instead of the elevator. Greg's apartment was on the 7th floor. The hallway was empty, quiet. Expensive carpet muffled my footsteps. Unit 714. I tried the door, locked, obviously. Jennifer said she had a key. I'd have to figure something else out. I examined the lock. Standard deadbolt. I had a lockpick set in my car, bought years ago for work-related reasons. Locked gates, secured facilities, perfectly legal in my line of work. I went back down, retrieved the set from my car, returned to the 7th floor. The hallway was still empty. I worked the lock for 3 minutes. It was harder than I expected. My hands were sweating. Finally, it clicked. I opened the door slowly, slipped inside, closed it behind me. The apartment was dark. I used my phone's flashlight, swept it across the space, modern furniture, expensive electronics, everything neat and organized. Greg was particular about his space. I found the bedroom, opened the closet, shoes lined up precisely, clothes organized by color, and at the back, a shoe rack. I removed the shoes, pulled the rack forward, found the panel, pushed on it. Nothing. Pushed harder. It slid sideways. Behind it was a small space, and inside that space, a cardboard file box. I pulled it out, opened it. Folders. Dozens of them, each labeled with a name and date range. I flipped through quickly. Patricia Hoffman, multiple executives I didn't recognize. Receipts, expense reports, hotel confirmations, restaurant bills, all fraudulent, all documented. I put the files in my backpack, replaced the panel, repositioned the shoe rack, walked back through the apartment, checked that everything looked undisturbed. At the door, I paused. Listened. Silence. I opened the door. Checked the hallway. Empty. Slipped out. Locked the door behind me. Took the stairs down. Exited through a side door into the parking lot. Drove away with my heart pounding. Back at my apartment, I spread the files across the kitchen table. There were 43 folders. Each one documented fraud by a different person or represented a different scheme. Patricia's folder was the thickest. I spent 3 hours reviewing everything, taking photos, scanning documents. By midnight, I had a complete digital record. The question was, what to do with it? I could send it to the authorities, SEC, IRS, local prosecutors. Any of them would be interested. But there was a problem. I'd obtained these files through breaking and entering. They'd be inadmissible. And I could face charges. Unless someone else found them legally. I picked up my phone, called Jennifer. "Did you get them?" she asked immediately. "Yes." "And?" "It's worse than you described. Patricia's been running a systematic fraud operation for years." "So what now?" "I need you to do something, and it's going to be uncomfortable." "What?" "You need to go back to Greg's apartment, with permission this time. Ask him to let you get your things. While you're there, find the files and call the police." "What? Why me?" "Because you're the only one who can legally be there. You have a key, you have a relationship with him. The police will believe you stumbled onto evidence." "He'll know it was me?" "Yes, but by then it won't matter. The evidence will be in official hands." Silence on the other end. Jennifer, this is the only way to expose Patricia without me going to prison for breaking into Greg's apartment. What about the files you have now? I'll return them before you go. Everything will be exactly as you found it. More silence. Why are you helping me? She asked finally. I'm not helping you. I'm helping the truth. That's the same thing you said before. Because it's still true. She exhaled. Okay, I'll do it. When? Tomorrow morning, call Greg. Tell him you need to get your things, be emotional, make it convincing. And if he says no, he won't. He still thinks he has leverage over you. He'll want to talk, to explain, to make you understand. You're sure about this? Yes. Okay. She hung up. I looked at the files spread across my table. This was the real twist. Not that Patricia was corrupt, that was predictable, but that I'd have to use Jennifer to expose her. The woman who'd humiliated me at the Christmas party was now the key to bringing down the person who'd been pulling strings all along. I gathered the files carefully, put them back in the box. Tomorrow morning, I'd return them to Greg's apartment before Jennifer arrived, and then the final phase would begin. I went to bed. This time, sleep came quickly. Saturday morning, I woke at 5, dressed in the same dark clothes, drove back to the Riverside Tower, same entry method, same stairs, same apartment. I replaced the files in their hiding spot, made sure everything was exactly as I'd found it, left without incident. By 7 a.m., I was back home, made coffee, waited. At 9, Jennifer called. I talked to Greg. He said I can come by at 11. Good. Remember, act natural. Get your things. Then discover the files. Call the police immediately. Don't touch anything else. I'm scared. You should be, but this is necessary. What if he suspects something? He won't. He's too focused on his own problems. Okay. Jennifer? Yeah? This ends today, one way or another. She hung up. I spent the next 2 hours pacing, drinking coffee, checking my phone. At 11:47, my phone rang. Jennifer. I found them, she whispered. Are you sure he doesn't know you're calling? He's in the bathroom. I found the files exactly where you said. There's so much here. Call the police right now. Okay. What do I tell them? Tell them you came to get your belongings. Tell them you found documents that appear to show financial fraud. Let them take it from there. All right. She hung up. I sat on the couch. Waited. 23 minutes later, she called back. The police are here. They're taking the files. They want to talk to me. Tell them the truth. You had permission to be here. You found the files. You called immediately. That's all. Greg is freaking out. He's yelling that this is a setup. Let him yell. The evidence speaks for itself. They're asking me to come to the station to give a statement. Go. Answer their questions honestly. You'll be fine. She hung up. I sat there, breathing slowly. It was done. The files were in official hands. Patricia's fraud would be exposed. Greg would face additional charges. Jennifer would be a witness, not a suspect, and I had orchestrated all of it while keeping my hands clean. My phone buzzed. Text from Tom. Holy shit. Police just showed up at the office. They're talking to Patricia. What's happening? I didn't respond. 3 hours later, the news broke. Local news website. Small article. Meridian Communications executive under investigation for fraud. The article was vague, no details, but it confirmed that Patricia Hoffman was being investigated by local authorities in connection with corporate expense fraud. I closed my laptop, walked to the kitchen, made a sandwich, ate it slowly. Everything I'd set in motion 3 weeks ago had led to this. The Christmas party humiliation had exposed Jennifer and Greg's relationship. That exposure had triggered Patricia's investigation. That investigation had uncovered Greg's fraud, and Greg's fraud had led back to Patricia's corruption. Each domino had fallen exactly as it had to, not because I'd planned every step, but because I'd understood the system well enough to know that pressure in one place would create cracks everywhere. That evening, Paul called. Did you have anything to do with what happened today? With what? Patricia Hoffman's arrest. She was arrested? Yes, about 2 hours ago. Fraud charges. Multiple counts. I didn't know that. You're a terrible liar. I'm not lying. I didn't get Patricia arrested. The evidence did that. Evidence that mysteriously appeared right when it needed to. Sometimes timing works out. He was quiet for a moment. You're either very lucky or very clever. Maybe both. Well, congratulations. You've managed to blow up an entire corporate structure. I didn't blow up anything. It was already broken. I just revealed the cracks. Sure. Keep telling yourself that. He hung up. I sat in the dark apartment. Felt nothing in particular. Not satisfaction, not pride, just a kind of quiet completion. The twist wasn't that Patricia was corrupt. The twist was that the investigation I'd started to expose Jennifer and Greg had always been about more than them. They were just symptoms of a larger disease. And now that disease was being cut out. I went to bed early. Tomorrow was Sunday. I had no plans, no meetings, no obligations. Just silence. And for the first time in months, that felt like exactly what I needed. Monday morning arrived with news coverage. Local stations had picked up the story. Major fraud investigation at regional communications firm. The reports were still vague, but they confirmed multiple executives were under investigation. Patricia Hoffman was named specifically. I watched the news while drinking coffee. The footage showed police cars outside Meridian's office building, employees being turned away, a spokesperson declining to comment. My phone started buzzing. Texts from Tom. Office is closed. Everyone got sent home. They're saying the whole executive team might be implicated. This is insane. I didn't respond to any of them. At 9 a.m., Paul called. You need to talk to me about something, he said. About what? The police want to interview you. I set down my coffee. Why? You filed the initial complaint that started the investigation. They want to understand the timeline, what you knew and when you knew it. I didn't know anything about fraud. I reported a policy violation. That's what you need to tell them. But you need to be prepared. They're going to ask how you gathered your information. They're going to ask about your relationship with Jennifer. They're going to ask if you had any knowledge of the financial crimes. I didn't? Then you'll be fine. But don't go in there alone. I'm coming with you. When? Wednesday, 10 a.m., downtown precinct. I'll meet you there. Okay. He hung up. I spent the day working. Real work. Client projects. Anything to keep my mind occupied. By evening, the news had evolved. More details emerging. Patricia Hoffman had been released on bail. Her lawyer released a statement proclaiming her innocence. The company's board had called an emergency meeting. Tuesday brought more chaos. Tom called me directly this time. They're shutting down the entire sales division, he said. Everyone's being laid off, pending restructuring. How many people? 47, including me. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's not your fault. Except it was. At least partially. The investigation I'd triggered had exposed the fraud. The fraud had destabilized the company. The destabilization had led to layoffs, cause and effect. What are you going to do? I asked. Look for another job. I'll be fine. I'm more worried about Jennifer. What about her? She gave a statement to police. Word is she's being treated as a witness, not a suspect, but people here are blaming her, saying she should have known what Greg was doing. That's not fair. No, but it's human nature. People need someone to blame. What about Greg? Still in custody, multiple charges now, fraud, trespassing, terroristic threats against you. He's looking at serious time. I processed this. And Patricia? Fighting everything. She's got expensive lawyers, claims she's being scapegoated, but the documents are pretty damning. Yeah. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. Did you know it would get this big when you sent that first email? I thought about it. No, I knew it would cause problems, but not this. Do you regret it? No. He was quiet for a moment. That's honest, at least. It's all I have. He hung up. I went for a run. 10 miles. Pushed until my legs felt like they'd give out. Came back exhausted. Showered. Collapsed on the couch. My phone buzzed. Jennifer. Can I call you? I hesitated, then replied, Yes. She called immediately. Thank you, she said. For what? For helping me expose Patricia. The police said the files I found are key evidence. Without them, she might have gotten away with everything. You found the files. You called the police. Because you told me to. You made the choice. She was quiet for a beat. Everyone at work hates me now. I heard. They think I'm responsible for the layoffs, for the investigation, for everything. Are you? No, but they don't see it that way. People rarely do. Is this how you felt? After the Christmas party, when everyone was laughing? I thought about it. Yes. I'm sorry. For what I did. For how I did it. It was cruel. Yes, it was. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good. Another pause. What happens now? You move on. Find another job. Start over. And us? There is no us. There hasn't been for a long time. I know. I just meant... Are we done? Like, completely done? Yes. Okay. Her voice was small. I'm going to hang up now. Okay. Goodbye. Goodbye. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone, feeling nothing in particular. Wednesday morning, I met Paul outside the downtown precinct. He was wearing a different expensive suit, same leather briefcase. Remember, he said, answer questions directly. Don't volunteer information, don't speculate. Got it. We went inside. A detective named Morrison led us to a small interview room. He was middle-aged, tired eyes, receding hairline. He carried a folder thick with papers. We sat. He opened the folder. Mr. Carver, thank you for coming in. I just have a few questions about the complaint you filed with Meridian Communications. Happy to help. You sent an email to Patricia Hoffman on Friday, November 29th. Is that correct? Yes. What prompted you to send that email? I observed policy violations, undisclosed workplace relationships, inappropriate public conduct at a company event. You're referring to your wife and Greg Paulson? Yes. And you documented these observations? Yes. Meeting times, schedule overlaps, public behavior. How did you gather this information? Public observation, publicly available schedules, my own experiences. Did you have any knowledge of financial fraud at this time? No. Did you ever access company financial records? No, I'm not an employee. I wouldn't have access. Did anyone provide you with internal company information? No. Morrison made notes. When did you first become aware of the fraud allegations? When Tom from accounting called to tell me Greg had been suspended, that was approximately 2 weeks after my initial email. And you had no prior knowledge? None. Did you have any contact with Greg Paulson's apartment or personal property? I glanced at Paul. He nodded slightly. I went to the parking garage where Greg's car was parked on one occasion. We had a conversation that's documented in the restraining order proceedings. But you never entered his apartment? No. Technically true, I'd entered, but I'd never stayed. And by the time the police found the evidence, I'd been nowhere near it. Morrison studied me. Mr. Carver, I need to be direct. Some people believe this investigation was orchestrated by you, that you deliberately set out to destroy multiple careers because of personal grievances. Paul leaned forward. Detective, my client reported legitimate policy violations. What the subsequent investigation uncovered was fraud committed by company executives. My client had no knowledge of that fraud and no ability to fabricate it. The evidence speaks for itself. Morrison kept his eyes on me. Is that accurate, Mr. Carver? Yes. So you're saying this was all just coincidence? You filed a complaint and it happened to uncover massive fraud? I'm saying I reported what I observed. Patricia Hoffman chose to investigate. What she found wasn't my doing. But you benefited. How? Your wife lost her job. Her lover lost his job. The woman who investigated your complaint is now facing criminal charges. That's convenient. It's consequences, not convenience. Morrison closed the folder. All right. Thank you for your time. If we have additional questions, we'll be in touch. Am I free to go? Yes. Paul and I stood, walked out. In the parking lot, he turned to me. That went well. You think so? He was fishing. He doesn't have anything connecting you to the fraud or the discovery of the files. You're clear. Good. But he's right about one thing. What's that? This is convenient. Very convenient. I met his eyes. Sometimes things work out. Yeah. He shook his head. Sometimes they do. He walked to his car. I walked to mine. On the drive home, I passed Meridian's office building. The parking lot was half empty. A sign on the door read, "Temporarily closed for internal review." I kept driving. The rest of the week was quiet. News coverage continued but began to fade. Other stories took priority. A political scandal, a celebrity situation. The world moved on. Friday evening, I received an email from a law firm I didn't recognize. Subject line, Estate of Meridian Communications. I opened it. The email informed me that Meridian Communications was filing for bankruptcy. As part of the proceedings, all ongoing investigations and employment disputes were being suspended pending resolution. The company would likely be dissolved or sold. Everyone who worked there would lose their jobs, not just the sales division. Everyone. I closed the laptop, walked to the window, looked out at the street. A few months ago, Jennifer had walked out of that bathroom with Greg, announced to everyone that I was just there for appearances. Everyone had laughed. Now Greg was facing multiple criminal charges. Patricia was out on bail fighting fraud allegations. Jennifer was unemployed and radioactive in her industry. The entire company was collapsing, and I was standing in my apartment, alone, unchanged. The chaos I'd started had consumed everyone but me. I should have felt victorious. Instead, I felt empty, because I'd realized something over the past weeks. The revenge wasn't in destroying them. The revenge was in showing them that they'd destroyed themselves. I hadn't fabricated evidence, hadn't lied, hadn't manipulated. I'd just revealed what was already there. They'd built their lives on corruption, deception, and cruelty. I'd simply applied enough pressure for those foundations to crack. The chaos wasn't my doing, it was theirs. I turned away from the window, made dinner, chicken, rice, vegetables, ate slowly, cleaned up, sat on the couch, turned on the television, found a documentary about architecture, watched buildings rise and fall on screen. My phone stayed silent. Outside, night fell. The apartment was quiet. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. The bankruptcy proceedings took 3 weeks. During that time, I worked. Client meetings, logistics reviews, normal operations. Life continued in its methodical way, but I kept track of the news, watched as Meridian Communications dissolved, employees scattered to other companies. The building sat empty, a for lease sign appearing in the window. Patricia's trial was scheduled for spring. Her lawyers were fighting to have evidence suppressed, claiming improper search and seizure, contaminated chain of custody, every technical argument they could find. Greg took a plea deal. 5 years for fraud and the terroristic threat charges. He'd be eligible for parole in 3. Jennifer disappeared from social media. No updates, no posts. She'd gone dark. I wondered about that sometimes. Where she'd gone, what she was doing, if she'd found another job. But I didn't look for answers. That part of my life was closed. Then, on a Tuesday in mid-January, something shifted. I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mr. Carver? A man's voice, older, gravelly. Yes. My name is Robert Vance. I'm a private investigator working on behalf of Patricia Hoffman's defense team. I said nothing. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Would you be willing to meet? For what purpose? To discuss the timeline of events leading to Ms. Hoffman's arrest, specifically the discovery of evidence at Mr. Paulson's apartment. I already spoke to the police about this. I understand, but there are some inconsistencies we'd like to clarify. Such as? Such as how your wife knew exactly where to find files that were hidden in a location requiring prior knowledge of a false panel. My hand tightened on the phone. You'd have to ask her. We did. She claims you told her where to look. That's not accurate. So you never told her about a shoe rack or a false panel? I thought quickly. The call was likely being recorded. I told her to look for anything unusual while she was collecting her belongings. That was general advice. But she found exactly what needed to be found, in a location that required very specific knowledge. Lucky timing. Mr. Carver, I've been doing this for 23 years. I don't believe in lucky timing. Believe what you want. I'd still like to meet. Compare notes. I don't think that's necessary. Ms. Hoffman believes you orchestrated this entire situation. She believes you broke into Mr. Paulson's apartment, photographed evidence, and then arranged for it to be discovered in a way that appeared legitimate. That's an interesting theory. Is it true? No. Can you prove it? I don't have to prove anything. The burden of proof is on you. He was quiet for a moment. You're right, but I'm good at my job, and I'm going to keep digging until I understand exactly what happened. Good luck with that. I hung up, immediately called Paul. Patricia's investigator just called me, I said. What did he want? To ask about the files, how Jennifer knew where to find them. What did you say? That I gave her general advice about looking for unusual things. Good. That's vague enough. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but he implied he's going to keep investigating. Let him. He won't find anything. You were never at that apartment during the relevant time frame. There's no evidence placing you there. You sure about that? Are you asking if you left evidence? I'm asking if you're confident. Pause. You didn't leave evidence, right? I was careful. That's not an answer. I wore gloves, avoided cameras, didn't touch anything unnecessary. Cameras in the building? I avoided the main entrance, used side doors, stayed off camera. Probably? Definitely. Another pause. Okay. But if this investigator finds something, anything, that connects you to that apartment, we have problems. Understood. In the meantime, don't talk to him again. If he calls, don't answer. If he shows up, don't engage. Refer everything to me. Will do. I hung up and sat very still. The investigator was good. He'd identified the weak point immediately. How had Jennifer known exactly where to look? But he couldn't prove I'd been there, not unless he found physical evidence. And I'd been careful. I spent the rest of the day working, trying to focus. But my mind kept drifting back to the apartment. Had I missed something? Left a trace? By evening, I was convinced I'd been thorough. No fingerprints, no DNA, no camera footage. I was safe. Then, 2 days later, the investigator showed up at my apartment. I opened the door to find him standing in the hallway. Mid-60s, gray haircut, military short. Weathered face. He wore a brown jacket and carried a tablet. Mr. Carver. We spoke on the phone. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by. I told you I don't want to meet. I understand, but I think you'll want to hear what I found. I doubt that. The Riverside Tower has security cameras at every entrance. Front, back, and parking garage. My stomach tightened. Okay. They also have cameras in the stairwells. Not every floor, but some floors. That's interesting. I pulled footage from the week before the police found the files at Mr. Paulson's apartment. I found something curious. He turned the tablet around. Showed me a still image. It was grainy, black and white, but it showed a man in dark clothing in a stairwell. Face partially obscured by the angle and low lighting. That's the 7th floor stairwell, Vance said, taken at 10:23 p.m. on Saturday, November 30th, the night before your wife discovered the files. I looked at the image. The man's face wasn't clear. Could be anyone. That's not me, I said. Are you sure? Same height? Similar build? Could be 100 people? Could be, but the timing is interesting. Someone was in that stairwell late at night. Someone who didn't want to be seen? Doesn't prove anything. No, but it's suggestive. He took back the tablet. I've also been looking into your background. You work in logistics, operations management. You're good with systems, good at solving problems. So someone with your skills would know how to enter a building undetected, how to avoid cameras, how to find hidden evidence. You're speculating. I'm connecting dots, and the pattern I'm seeing is interesting. I crossed my arms. Is there a question in all of this? Yes. Did you break into Greg Paulson's apartment? No. Did you tell your wife exactly where to find the files? I gave her general advice. General advice that led her directly to a false panel behind a shoe rack? Lucky timing, he smiled, no warmth. You said that before. I still don't believe it. Then you have a problem, because I'm not changing my answer. He put the tablet away. Fair enough, but I want you to know something. I'm going to keep digging. And if I find proof that you tampered with evidence or broke into that apartment, I'm going to make sure Patricia's lawyers know about it, and then you'll be the one facing charges. Good luck. I don't need luck. I need time. He walked away. I closed the door, locked it, stood there breathing slowly. The image he'd shown me, was that me? I couldn't tell. The angle was wrong. The lighting poor, but it was from the right date. The right location. If he had that footage, what else did he have? I pulled out my phone, called Paul. The investigator just showed up at my apartment. What? I told you not to talk to him. I didn't invite him. He just appeared. What did he want? He has footage from the Riverside Tower, stairwell camera, someone in dark clothing on the 7th floor the night before Jennifer found the files. Silence. Paul? Is it you in the footage? I can't tell. The image is grainy. But it could be you? It could be anyone. That's not good enough. If he can place you at that building on that night, we have serious problems. What do I do? Nothing. Don't talk to him again. Don't volunteer anything. Let me handle this. How? I'll file a harassment complaint. Get a restraining order if necessary. But you need to sit tight and stay quiet. Okay. And one more thing? What? If that footage is you, if there's any chance it's you, you need to tell me now. I thought about lying, about saying it definitely wasn't me. But Paul was smart. He'd figure it out eventually. It might be me, I said. God. Long exhale. Okay, here's what's going to happen. We're going to deny everything. The footage is inconclusive. Doesn't show a face. Could be anyone. We maintain that you were never at that apartment. What if he finds more? Then we deal with it then. But right now he has one grainy image from a stairwell. That's not enough. You sure? No, but it's all we have. He hung up. I sat on the couch, stared at the wall. This was the risk I'd known existed but hadn't fully calculated. I'd been careful, but not perfect. And now someone was pulling on that thread. The question was, would it unravel everything? I spent the next week in a state of low-level anxiety, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting for police to show up with questions I couldn't answer. But nothing happened. No calls, no visits, no news. Then, on Friday evening, I received an email from Robert Vance. Subject line: Proposal. I opened it. Mr. Carver, I've continued my investigation, and I believe I have enough evidence to create reasonable doubt about the legitimacy of the evidence discovered at Mr. Paulson's apartment. However, I'm willing to make you an offer. If you provide a sworn statement acknowledging your role in guiding your wife to the files, I'll recommend to Ms. Hoffman's legal team that they pursue a settlement rather than exposing your involvement in court. This would benefit both of us. You avoid criminal charges. Ms. Hoffman potentially avoids conviction. Think about it. You have 48 hours. RV. I read it 3 times. He was trying to flip me, get me to admit involvement in exchange for avoiding prosecution, but it was a trap. If I admitted anything, I'd be confessing to breaking and entering, tampering with evidence. That confession could be used against me in multiple ways, and there was no guarantee Patricia would actually settle. Her lawyers might use my confession to attack the evidence while still pursuing their own defense. I forwarded the email to Paul. He called immediately. Don't respond. This is a fishing expedition. He's offering a deal. He's offering nothing. He has no authority to guarantee you won't face charges. Only the DA can do that, and he definitely can't guarantee Patricia will settle. So what do? Ignore it. Let the deadline pass. Call his bluff. What if he's not bluffing? Then we fight it in court. But I don't think he has enough. That stairwell footage isn't conclusive. Without more evidence placing you inside the apartment, his theory is just speculation. You're sure? Sure enough? I hung up and stared at the email. 48 hours. I let them pass in silence. On Sunday evening, exactly 48 hours after receiving the email, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered. Hello? You didn't respond to my proposal, Vance's voice. I have nothing to say to you. That's disappointing. I was hoping we could resolve this amicably. There's nothing to resolve. I think there is. But if you want to do this the hard way, that's your choice. Do what the hard way? Exposing your involvement. I'm recommending to Ms. Hoffman's legal team that they subpoena you. Put you on the stand. Let you answer questions under oath. Go ahead. You realize perjury carries serious penalties? I'm not going to commit perjury because I'm not going to lie. We'll see about that. He hung up. I sat there holding the phone. This was escalating, but I'd made my choice. I wasn't going to flip, wasn't going to give them anything. If they wanted to put me on the stand, fine. I'd answer questions truthfully. I'd never been in that apartment when it mattered. The files Jennifer found were exactly where they'd always been. The fact that I'd seen them earlier was irrelevant, unless they could prove it, and so far they couldn't. I went to bed that night feeling more settled than I had in days. The second action sequence had begun. The pressure was intensifying, but I'd positioned myself carefully. Now I just had to wait and see if my preparation had been thorough enough. Monday morning brought news. Patricia Hoffman's trial date had been moved up. Instead of spring, it would begin in 6 weeks. Her legal team was pushing for a speedy resolution, probably hoping to catch the prosecution unprepared. It was an aggressive move, and it meant everything would come to a head much sooner than expected. I read the news article twice, then closed my laptop, walked to the window, looked out at the winter morning, gray sky, bare trees, cold streets. Everything was accelerating now. The chaos was reaching its peak, and I was standing right at the center of it, watching it all unfold, exactly as I'd known it would. The second action sequence had forced me to confront the risks I'd taken, the evidence I'd handled, the lines I'd crossed, but I'd held firm, refused to break. Now I just had to see if that would be enough. The subpoena arrived on a Wednesday morning. I was making coffee when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find a woman in her 30s holding a clipboard and an envelope. "Are you the person named in this document?" she asked, reading my name from the clipboard. "Yes." She handed me the envelope. "You've been served." Then she was gone. I closed the door, opened the envelope, read the document inside. I was being subpoenaed to testify at Patricia Hoffman's trial. The date was circled in red, February 14th, 3 weeks away. I called Paul immediately. "They actually did it," I said. "I see that. I just got a copy delivered to my office." "What does this mean?" "It means you're going to testify, under oath. They're going to ask you about your complaint, your knowledge of the investigation, and, most importantly, whether you had any involvement in the discovery of evidence at Greg Paulson's apartment. What do I say? The truth. You filed a legitimate complaint. You had no knowledge of fraud. You never entered Greg's apartment during the relevant time frame. What about the stairwell footage? The footage is inconclusive. Shows someone in dark clothing, could be anyone, unless they can definitively prove it's you, facial recognition, additional footage, eyewitnesses. It's just circumstantial. And if they push harder, then you stick to your story. You were at home. You have no alibi because you live alone, but absence of an alibi isn't proof of guilt. You make it sound simple. It's not, but it's manageable. The key is staying calm. Don't get defensive. Don't volunteer information. Answer what they ask and nothing more. Okay. I'll prep you next week. We'll run through likely questions, practice responses. You'll be ready. I hope so. You will be. He hung up. I set the phone down and stared at the subpoena. 3 weeks. That's how long I had to prepare for the most important performance of my life. Because that's what it would be, a performance. Playing the role of an innocent man who'd simply reported policy violations and happened to trigger a much larger investigation. The role was close to reality, but not identical. And if I slipped, if I said one wrong thing, the gap between the role and reality would become visible. I spent the rest of the day trying to work, but my mind kept drifting to the trial, to the questions they'd ask, to the ways I might inadvertently reveal something I shouldn't. By evening, I gave up on work, went for a long run instead. 8 miles. Came back exhausted, but clearer. That night, I received a text from Jennifer. I heard you got subpoenaed. Me too. I stared at the message, debated whether to respond, finally typed, "What are they asking you?" Everything, how I knew where to look, what you told me, whether you ever mentioned the files before I found them. What are you going to say? The truth, that you told me to look for anything unusual while I was getting my things, that I found the files by accident. That is the truth. I know, but they don't believe it. They don't have to believe it. They have to prove otherwise. Are you scared? I thought about that. Was I? No. I am. Don't be. Just answer honestly. Okay. She didn't text again. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Paul drilled me relentlessly, question after question, each one designed to trip me up or expose inconsistency. When did you first suspect your wife was having a relationship with Greg Paulson? Approximately 6 months before the Christmas party. I noticed changes in her schedule and behavior. Did you confront her? No? Why not? I wanted to observe first, understand the situation before acting. So you were gathering evidence? I was gathering observations. For what purpose? To make an informed decision about my marriage. Did you intend to report their relationship to the company? Not initially. That decision came after the Christmas party. What changed? The public humiliation, the announcement in front of her coworkers. That made it clear she had no respect for our relationship or for appropriate professional boundaries. Paul would nod. Make notes. Then hit me with another question. Did you ever enter Greg Paulson's apartment? No. Did you ever attempt to enter his apartment? No. The security footage shows someone in the stairwell. Was that you? I don't know what the footage shows. I was not in that building. Can you prove where you were on the night in question? I was at home, alone. No alibi? No, but lack of an alibi isn't evidence of guilt. He'd pause, study me. You're getting defensive. I'm being honest. Honest sounds defensive when you're under pressure. You need to stay calmer, more matter of fact. We'd start again. By the time the trial date arrived, I'd answered every possible question hundreds of times. My responses were automatic, consistent, believable. At least I hoped they were. February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. I met Paul outside the courthouse at 8 a.m. He looked sharp, confident. I wore a suit I'd bought specifically for this. Navy, conservative. I wanted to look professional, trustworthy. Remember, Paul said as we walked inside, stay calm. Answer only what's asked. Don't elaborate. If you don't know something, say so. If you don't remember, say so. Don't guess. I got it. And one more thing. What? Patricia's lawyer is going to try to rattle you, make you angry, defensive. Don't take the bait. Okay. We went through security, took the elevator to the 3rd floor. The The courtroom was larger than the one for the restraining order hearing. More formal, dark wood, high ceilings, an American flag and a state flag flanking the judge's bench. Patricia was already there, sitting at the defense table with two lawyers. She looked thinner than I remembered, older. The confidence she'd radiated at the office was gone. When she saw me, her expression hardened. Pure hatred. I looked away. Jennifer was there too, sitting in the gallery. She gave me a small nod. I didn't acknowledge it. The judge entered at 9 a.m. sharp. Everyone stood. He was younger than I expected, 40s maybe. Sharp eyes, no-nonsense demeanor. Please be seated. We're here for the trial of Patricia Hoffman, charged with multiple counts of corporate fraud and embezzlement. Is the prosecution ready? A woman in her 30s stood. Yes, Your Honor. Is the defense ready? Patricia's lead lawyer stood. A man in his 60s, expensive suit, silver hair. Yes, Your Honor. Good. Let's proceed. The morning was spent on jury selection and opening statements. I sat in the gallery, watching, listening. The prosecution laid out their case methodically, documented fraud, expense reports, hotel stays, flights, dinners, all billed to the company under false pretenses. Millions of dollars over 3 years. The evidence was damning. Patricia's lawyer countered by arguing that the evidence had been obtained improperly, that the files discovered at Greg Paulson's apartment were the result of an illegal search orchestrated by a vengeful husband trying to destroy his wife's career. He pointed at me while saying this. Every eye in the courtroom turned my direction. I kept my face neutral. At noon, the judge called a recess for lunch. I left the courthouse with Paul. We found a deli 2 blocks away, sat in a booth at the back. They're going after you hard, Paul said. I noticed. The defense is trying to shift focus. Make this about you instead of Patricia's crimes. Classic strategy. Will it work? Depends on how you handle the stand. If you stay calm and consistent, no. If you crack, maybe. I won't crack. Good. We ate in silence. I wasn't hungry, but forced myself to finish the sandwich. I needed energy. At 1 p.m., we returned to the courthouse. The afternoon was spent on witness testimony. Company accountants, forensic analysts, each one detailed the fraud, showed spreadsheets, highlighted discrepancies. By 4 p.m., I was exhausted from just watching. The judge adjourned for the day. We'll reconvene tomorrow at 9 a.m. The defense will begin calling witnesses. I knew what that meant. Tomorrow I'd testify. That night I couldn't sleep. Lay in bed running through questions and answers. Over and over. Finally gave up at 5 a.m., made coffee, sat at the kitchen table. My phone buzzed, text from Paul. Today's the day. You ready? As ready as I'll ever be. You'll do fine. See you at 8. I showered, dressed in the same suit, made sure my tie was straight. At the courthouse, Paul met me outside again. Remember everything we practiced. Stay calm. Answer only what's asked. I know. I'll be right there. If a question is improper, I'll object. Otherwise, just do your best. We went inside. At 9:15, the judge called me to the stand. I walked forward, raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth. Sat down. Patricia's lawyer, his name was Harrison, stood and approached. Mr. Carver, thank you for being here today. I nodded. You filed a complaint with Meridian Communications on November 29th of last year. Is that correct? Yes. What prompted that complaint? I observed policy violations regarding undisclosed workplace relationships. You're referring to your wife and Greg Paulson? Yes. And these observations, how did you gather them? Through direct observation and publicly available information. Can you be more specific? I noticed changes in my wife's behavior and schedule. I observed her interacting with Mr. Paulson at a company event. I reviewed publicly available meeting schedules that showed unusual patterns. So you were investigating them? I was observing. For how long? Approximately 6 months. That's a long time to observe without taking action. I wanted to be sure before making any decisions. Decisions about what? About my marriage, about whether to report policy violations. Harrison walked back to his table, picked up a folder. Mr. Carver, when did you first learn about the financial fraud committed by Ms. Hoffman and Mr. Paulson? After the investigation began, when Tom from accounting called to inform me that Mr. Paulson had been suspended. You had no prior knowledge? None? And yet your complaint directly led to the discovery of that fraud. The investigation led to that discovery, not my complaint. But without your complaint, there would have been no investigation. That's speculation. Harrison smiled. Let's talk about the files discovered at Mr. Paulson's apartment. Files that were key evidence in this case. Do you know how those files were discovered? My wife found them while collecting her belongings. Did you tell her where to look? I suggested she look for anything unusual while she was there. Anything unusual. That's vague advice, isn't it? It's accurate advice. And yet she found exactly what needed to be found, in a hidden location requiring specific knowledge. Do you find that coincidental? I find it fortunate. Fortunate? Harrison walked closer to the stand. Mr. Carver, did you break into Greg Paulson's apartment on the night of November 30th? No. We have security footage showing someone in the stairwell of that building, someone matching your height and build, someone in dark clothing. Was that you? I don't know who that was. It wasn't me. Where were you on the night of November 30th? At home. Can anyone verify that? No. I live alone. How convenient. Paul stood. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained, the judge said. Mr. Harrison, stick to questions. Harrison nodded. Mr. Carver, you have a background in logistics and operations management. Is that correct? Yes. That requires attention to detail, problem solving, understanding systems. Yes. Someone with your skills would know how to enter a building without being detected, would know how to avoid cameras, would know how to find hidden evidence. Isn't that true? Objection, Paul said. Calls for speculation. I'll allow it, the judge said. Answer the question, Mr. Carver. I looked directly at Harrison. Someone with my skills would know those things theoretically, but I didn't do them practically. You expect us to believe that you had no involvement in the discovery of evidence that conveniently destroyed your wife's career, her lover's career, and exposed Ms. Hoffman's fraud? I expect you to prove otherwise. Belief isn't evidence. Harrison's eyes narrowed. Did you want revenge, Mr. Carver? Objection. Relevance. Your Honor, it goes to motive, Harrison said. I'll allow it. Answer the question. I paused, thought carefully. Everyone wants justice when they've been wronged. Whether you call that revenge or accountability is semantics. So you admit you wanted revenge? I admit I wanted truth. I wanted people to understand what had happened. I wanted consequences for actions. And you got those consequences. Everyone involved lost their jobs, some are facing criminal charges, and you're sitting here, untouched. I'm sitting here because I followed the rules. I reported policy violations through proper channels. What happened after that wasn't my doing. Wasn't it? Harrison walked back to his table, picked up the tablet. I'd like to show you something. He approached the judge. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence security footage from the Riverside Tower, dated November 30th. Paul stood. Objection. Our foundation hasn't been established. This footage has not been authenticated. I can authenticate it, Harrison said. I have testimony from the building's security director ready to present. The judge considered. I'll allow it provisionally, but I want that authentication before the end of the day. Harrison turned to me, showed me the tablet, the grainy black and white image from the stairwell. Is this you? He asked. I looked at the image carefully. The face wasn't visible. The angle was wrong. I can't tell who that is. But it could be you. It could be hundreds of people. The timestamp shows 10:23 p.m. The location is the 7th floor stairwell, the same floor as Mr. Paulson's apartment. And this was the night before your wife discovered the files. You really expect us to believe that's coincidence? I expect you to prove it's not. Harrison stared at me, trying to break me with eye contact. I didn't look away. Finally, he turned to the judge. No further questions at this time, but I reserve the right to recall this witness. Noted, the judge said. Mr. Berger, redirect? Paul stood. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Carver, you stated you were home on the night of November 30th. Did you leave your apartment at any point that evening? No. Did you drive anywhere? No. Did you have any contact with anyone who could place you at the Riverside Tower? No. So the only evidence connecting you to that building is a grainy security image that doesn't show a face? Correct. And you categorically deny being the person in that image? I do. Thank you. No further questions. The judge looked at me. You may step down, Mr. Carver. I stood, walked back to the gallery, sat down. My hands were shaking slightly. I clasped them together. Paul was right. I hadn't cracked, but it had been close. The rest of the day was spent on other witnesses, character witnesses for Patricia, expert testimony about corporate expense procedures. At 5 p.m., the judge adjourned. We'll continue tomorrow. The defense will complete their case, then closing arguments. Outside the courthouse, Paul stopped me. You did good. Better than good. You stayed calm, didn't give them anything. The footage? Inconclusive. Harrison knows it. That's why he kept pushing. He was hoping you'd slip. Admit something, but you didn't. What happens now? They'll finish their case tomorrow, then we see what the jury decides. And if they believe Harrison, if they think I orchestrated everything, then Patricia might get acquitted, but you won't face charges. The DA would need to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you broke into that apartment, and all they have is that image. Not enough. You sure? Sure enough. I went home, ordered takeout, ate without tasting it, turned on the television, turned it off, sat in silence. Tomorrow would determine everything. Whether Patricia would be convicted, whether my involvement would remain hidden, whether this would finally be over. I went to bed early, lay awake for hours, finally slept, and dreamed of stairwells and cameras and faces I couldn't see. The next morning, I woke to my phone ringing. 6 a.m. Unknown number. I answered. Hello? It's me. Jennifer's voice, strained. Can we meet before court? Why? I need to talk to you. Please, it's important. About what? Not over the phone, please. The coffee shop on 6th Street, 7 a.m. She hung up before I could respond. I lay there for a moment, then got up, showered, dressed. The coffee shop was small and mostly empty when I arrived. Jennifer was already there, sitting at a corner table. She looked worse than she had in the courtroom. Her hands were wrapped around a paper cup, but she wasn't drinking. I sat across from her. What's this about? They want me to change my testimony. Who? Patricia's lawyers. They contacted me last night. Said if I testify that you explicitly told me where to find the files, if I say you gave me specific instructions about the false panel, they'll make sure I don't face any charges related to the expense fraud. I went very still. Are you facing charges? They're threatening them, saying I signed off on some of Greg's reports, that I could be charged as an accessory. Did you sign off on them? I don't remember. I signed hundreds of reports. I didn't look at them all carefully. Her voice cracked. I didn't know what he was doing. So what are you going to do? She looked at me. Her eyes were red. I don't want to go to prison. You won't. The evidence against you is minimal. They're bluffing. How do you know? Because if they had real evidence, they'd have charged you already. This is pressure. They want you to flip. But what if they're not bluffing? Then you make a choice. Tell the truth and risk charges, or lie and destroy me. She wiped her eyes. I don't want to destroy you. But you're considering it. I'm scared. I know. We sat in silence. The barista cleaned tables. Someone came in and ordered. The morning routine continued around us. Did you do it? She asked finally. Did you break into Greg's apartment? I looked at her for a long moment. Weighed the truth against safety. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I need to know what I'm protecting, or what I'm exposing. I leaned forward, kept my voice low. What do you think happened? I think you're smarter than anyone gives you credit for. I think you saw an opportunity and you took it. I think you found those files, documented everything, and then arranged for me to discover them legally so they'd be admissible. That's a theory. Is it true? If I say yes, you could tell Patricia's lawyers. Use it to save yourself. I won't. How do I know that? Because I owe you this. For what I did at the Christmas party. For how I treated you. I was cruel. You didn't deserve that. I sat back. So what are you going to do? She took a deep breath. I'm going to tell the truth. That you gave me general advice. That I found the files on my own. That I don't know if you were ever in that apartment. They'll threaten you. Let them. You could go to prison. Then I go to prison, but I won't lie. Not about this. I studied her face, trying to determine if she meant it. Why the change? I asked. Because I spent months lying. To you, to myself, about Greg, about what I wanted, and it destroyed everything. I'm done lying. Convenient timing. Maybe, but it's true. The barista called out an order. Someone walked past our table. The world kept moving. Thank you, I said finally. She nodded. I should go. I need to prepare for today. She stood, hesitated. For what it's worth, I hope they convict her. Patricia knew what Greg was doing. She approved his expenses for years. She's just as guilty as he is. I know. And I hope you get what you wanted, whatever that is. She walked out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, finishing my coffee, thinking. Jennifer had made her choice, to tell the truth despite the risk. I wondered if I'd have done the same in her position. Probably not. I paid and left. Drove to the courthouse. Met Paul outside at 8:30. "You look tired," he said. "Didn't sleep well?" "Understandable. Today's closing arguments. Then it goes to the jury." "How long do you think they'll deliberate?" "Could be hours, could be days. Depends on how convinced they are." We went inside, took our seats. At 9 a.m., the judge entered. "Good morning. Is the defense ready to present closing arguments?" Harrison stood. "Yes, Your Honor." He approached the jury, spoke for 40 minutes. His argument was simple. The evidence had been tainted by improper discovery. The files found at Greg Paulson's apartment were the result of an illegal search orchestrated by a vengeful husband. Without those files, the prosecution's case fell apart. He pointed at me multiple times, called me the puppet master, said I'd manipulated everyone, Jennifer, the police, the court, to achieve my own revenge. It was compelling. I could see some jurors nodding. Then the prosecutor stood for her closing. She was methodical, walked through the evidence piece by piece, bank records, credit card statements, hotel confirmations, expense reports with Patricia's signature. "The defense wants you to focus on how evidence was discovered," she said. "But that's a distraction. The evidence itself is real. Ms. Hoffman's signatures are real. The fraud is real. Whether Mr. Carver was involved in the discovery doesn't change the fact that Ms. Hoffman stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from her company." She paused, looked at each juror. "Don't let sympathy for a defendant's legal strategy obscure the facts. Patricia Hoffman committed fraud, repeatedly, systematically, for years, and she needs to be held accountable." She sat down. The judge gave instructions to the jury, explained reasonable doubt, burden of proof, the elements of each charge. Then the jury filed out to deliberate. The judge looked at the courtroom. "We're in recess until the jury reaches a verdict. I'll notify counsel when they are ready." Everyone stood. The judge left. Paul turned to me. "Now we wait." We left the courthouse, found a diner across the street, ordered coffee, sat in a booth. "How long do you think?" I asked. "If they come back quickly, within a few hours, it's usually a conviction. Quick verdicts mean clear evidence. If they take days, it could go either way. So we're hoping for quick. We're hoping for justice, whatever form that takes." I called work clients, rescheduled meetings, told them I had a family emergency. No one pressed for details. 2 hours passed, then 3. At 1 p.m., Paul's phone rang. He answered, listened. "We'll be right there." He hung up. "Jury's back." "Already?" "Yeah, that's fast." We returned to the courthouse. The gallery was filling up. Reporters, court watchers, people invested in the outcome. Jennifer was there. She caught my eye, gave a small nod. At 1:30, the judge entered. Everyone stood, sat. The jury filed in. I tried to read their faces. Some looked serious, others blank. One woman looked upset. The judge addressed the jury foreman. "Have you reached a verdict?" The foreman stood. "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of corporate fraud in the first degree, how do you find?" "Guilty." Patricia made a sound. Half gasp, half sob. "On the charge of embezzlement, how do you find?" "Guilty." The judge continued through all 7 charges. "Guilty, guilty, guilty." Patricia's head dropped into her hands. Her lawyers touched her shoulders. Spoke quietly. The judge thanked the jury. Set a sentencing date for 6 weeks out. Adjourned the court. I sat very still. It was done. Patricia had been convicted. The fraud had been proven. The evidence held. My involvement remained unproven. I'd won. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like completion. A process finished. A system resolved. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras, microphones, questions shouted. Paul steered me away. "No comment, no comment." We walked to his car. Got in. "Congratulations," he said. "For what?" "For surviving. That could have gone very differently." "Yeah. Are you okay?" "I don't know." He started the engine. "Go home. Rest. This is over." He drove me to my car. I got out. "Thanks for everything." "Just doing my job." He paused. "For what it's worth, I don't know if you did what Harrison accused you of, and I don't want to know. But if you did, you pulled it off. That takes skill. Or luck. Maybe both." He drove away. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, then drove home. The apartment was quiet, empty, exactly as I'd left it. I made dinner, chicken, rice, vegetables, the same meal I'd made 100 times. Ate slowly, cleaned up, sat on the couch. My phone buzzed, text from Tom. Saw the news. Patricia got convicted. Crazy. I didn't respond. Another text from Jennifer. Thank you for everything. I mean that. I stared at the message, typed, "You're welcome." Then deleted it. Didn't send anything. I turned on the television, found a documentary about space exploration, watched stars and galaxies on screen. The trial was over. Patricia would go to prison. Greg was already serving time. Jennifer would move on to whatever came next, and I would return to my normal life. Work, clients, logistics, systems, everything back to how it had been before the Christmas party. Except it wasn't, because I'd crossed lines, broken into an apartment, handled evidence, manipulated outcomes. I'd told myself it was about truth, about justice, about consequences, but sitting there in the silent apartment, I understood what it had really been about. Control. For years, I'd lived without it. Jennifer had controlled the narrative of our relationship. Greg had controlled social dynamics. Patricia had controlled corporate outcomes, and I'd been powerless, just there for appearances. But when I'd walked out of that Christmas party, I'd made a choice to stop being powerless, to start applying pressure, to see what would happen when systems broke. And they had broken, spectacularly, not because I'd forced them, but because I'd understood them well enough to know exactly where to push. I turned off the television, went to bed. Tomorrow I'd wake up and the world would keep turning. Work would continue, life would continue. But I'd be different. Not because I'd won, but because I'd learned something fundamental about myself. I was capable of more than I'd realized, more calculation, more patience, more ruthlessness. And that knowledge, that understanding of what I could do when pushed, would stay with me forever. I closed my eyes and slept. 3 days after the verdict, I received a phone call from an unknown local number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Mr. Carver? This is Detective Morrison. We spoke during the investigation. I sat up straighter. I remember. I wanted to inform you that we've closed our inquiry into the discovery of evidence at Greg Paulson's apartment. We found no grounds to pursue charges against you or anyone else regarding the chain of custody. Okay. However, I want you to know something off the record. What's that? I don't believe in coincidences, not like the ones that happened here, but I also believe in evidence. And without evidence, belief doesn't matter. I understand. Do you? Yes. A long pause. Good luck, Mr. Carver. Try to stay out of trouble. He hung up. I set the phone down and exhaled slowly. It was officially over. No charges, no investigation, no consequences. I'd emerged clean, but Morrison's words lingered. He knew, or suspected. He just couldn't prove it. That was the gap I'd lived in for months, the space between suspicion and proof, between what people believed and what they could demonstrate, and I'd navigated it successfully. The rest of the week passed in quiet routine. Work resumed, clients called, projects moved forward. The world continued as if nothing had happened. On Friday evening, I went to a bar, something I rarely did, but I felt the need to be around people, to hear noise, to feel less alone. I sat at the bar, ordered whiskey, watched a basketball game on the television above the bottles. After 20 minutes, someone sat next to me. I glanced over. Greg. My entire body went rigid. He looked terrible, thinner, unshaven, wearing a stained sweatshirt and jeans. His expensive watch was gone, the confidence obliterated. Relax, he said without looking at me. I'm not here to start something. What are you here for? Same as you, to drink. He ordered bourbon. The bartender poured it without making eye contact. We sat in silence for 2 minutes. Then Greg spoke. I got out last week. Plea deal reduced my sentence. Good behavior. Congratulations. Don't be a jerk. Then don't sit next to me. He took a long drink. You destroyed my life. No, you destroyed your life. I just revealed it. Semantics. Truth. He laughed, bitter, empty. You're probably right. I know I'm right. Patricia got 15 years. Did you know that? I'd seen the news. Yes. 15 years for expense fraud. Meanwhile, I'm out in 3. The system's weird. The system's fair. She committed more fraud. For longer. That's why she got more time. And I committed terroristic threats. Against you. That's why I got time at all. You came to my door, made threats, damaged property. Because you ruined everything. No, because you couldn't control yourself. He finished his bourbon, ordered another. You know what the worst part is? What? I actually loved her. Jennifer, I know you don't believe that, but I did. Doesn't matter if I believe it. She won't talk to me, changed her number, blocked me on everything. I'm persona non grata. Can you blame her? No. He looked at me finally. Can I ask you something? What? Did you break into my apartment? I took a sip of whiskey, set the glass down carefully. The police investigated that, found no evidence. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. He studied my face. You did. I know you did. The timing, the way Jennifer knew exactly where to look, you were there. Believe what you want. How'd you get in? I didn't. Liar. I turned to face him fully. Even if I had been there, which I wasn't, what would it matter now? Patricia's convicted. You served time. Jennifer's moved on. It's done. It matters because you got away with it. Got away with what? Reporting policy violations? That's not a crime. You know what you did. Do I? He stared at me, then shook his head. You're cold, man. Really cold. I'm practical. Is that what you call it? What would you call it? Calculated, ruthless, like you planned every move. I didn't respond. He finished his second bourbon, stood up, dropped cash on the bar. I hope it was worth it. Whatever satisfaction you got from destroying us. I didn't destroy you. Your choices did that. Keep telling yourself that. He walked out. I sat there for another hour, drinking slowly, thinking. Greg was right about one thing. I had planned moves. Not everyone, but enough. I'd understood the system well enough to know where pressure would create fractures, where truth would cascade, where consequences would follow naturally from revealed actions. But I hadn't destroyed anyone. They'd built their lives on fraud, deception, and cruelty. I just revealed the foundations. What collapsed after that was inevitable. I paid my tab, left the bar, walked to my car. The night was cold, clear, stars visible despite the city lights. I drove home through empty streets. Back at the apartment, I checked my email. Found one from a former client. They wanted to discuss a new project. Large scope. Good pay. I replied with my availability. Then I opened my laptop and pulled up a news article I'd bookmarked. Local coverage of Patricia's sentencing. The article included a photo, her being led into the courthouse in handcuffs. Head down. Lawyers flanking her. I stared at the image for a long time. This was supposed to be the moment of satisfaction. The proof that justice had been served, that consequences had fallen where they belonged. But I felt nothing. No triumph, no vindication, just a hollow understanding that I'd set something in motion and watched it run its course. I closed the laptop, went to the kitchen, made a sandwich, turkey and cheese. The bread was fresh this time. Ate standing at the counter, cleaned up, went to the bedroom, lay down fully clothed, stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd wake up and go for a run, make coffee, answer emails, start the new client project. Life would continue in its methodical patterns. But tonight, I let myself acknowledge what I'd become. Not a hero, not a villain, just someone who'd been pushed to a breaking point and had chosen to push back. Someone who'd learned that systems could be manipulated if you understood them well enough. That pressure applied precisely would create predictable fractures. That truth, deployed strategically, was more devastating than any lie. I'd become someone who could stand at a Christmas party, smile while being publicly humiliated, and walk out knowing exactly what would happen next. Not because I'd planned every detail, but because I'd understood people well enough to know they'd destroy themselves if given the opportunity, and I'd given them that opportunity. The Christmas party had been 6 months ago. It felt like years. Jennifer announcing to everyone that Greg was her real partner, that I was just there for appearances. Everyone laughing, agreeing, enjoying the spectacle, me smiling, taking a sip, walking out. 3 days later, chaos. I'd kept my promise, the one I'd made to myself as I'd left that party. They'd all pay, not through violence, not through obvious revenge, but through consequences, natural, inevitable, logical. Patricia, 15 years in prison. Greg, 3 years served, career destroyed, reputation ruined. Jennifer, unemployed, blacklisted in her industry, alone. Tom and 46 others, laid off when the company collapsed. Meridian Communications, bankrupt, dissolved, gone. All because I'd sent one email, 23 pages of observations, time-stamped, documented. True, everything that followed had been consequence, not revenge, at least that's what I told myself. I closed my eyes. Sleep didn't come immediately, but eventually it did. And when I woke the next morning, I went for my run, made my coffee, started my day. The apartment was quiet, empty, mine. Outside, the world continued. People went to work, traffic moved, life happened in its infinite complexity. And somewhere in that complexity, 3 people were dealing with the consequences of their actions. While I stood at my kitchen window, drinking coffee, watching the morning light spread across the buildings. Untouched, unchanged, victorious. Not because I'd won, but because I'd understood something fundamental about human nature. People built their lives on unstable foundations, lies, fraud, cruelty, arrogance. And when someone came along who understood structural integrity, who knew exactly where to apply pressure, those foundations crumbled. I'd applied pressure. They'd crumbled. Simple as that. I finished my coffee, rinsed the cup, set it in the sink. My phone buzzed. The new client confirming our meeting for Monday, I replied. Confirmed, looking forward to it. Then I went to my desk, opened my laptop, started reviewing logistics for the project, numbers, systems, patterns, the things that made sense, the things I controlled. And outside my window, the city moved forward. People made decisions, took actions, created consequences they didn't yet understand. While I sat in my quiet apartment, understanding everything. 3 days after the Christmas party, I'd promised chaos. 6 months later, I delivered. Not through violence, not through obvious revenge, but through truth. Strategic, precise, devastating truth. They'd thought I was weak, passive, just there for appearances. They'd learned otherwise, and now they'd spend years, maybe decades, dealing with that lesson. While I moved on, to new clients, new projects, new systems to understand and navigate. The revenge was complete, not in the destruction itself, but in the understanding that I'd orchestrated it while keeping my hands clean. That was the real victory. I saved my work. Closed the laptop, stood up, stretched, looked around the empty apartment one more time. Then I grabbed my jacket and left. I had a meeting with a potential client downtown, a logistics company with distribution problems. They needed someone who understood systems, who could identify weaknesses, who could apply pressure in exactly the right places to create change. I was very good at that. I smiled as I walked to my car. The world was full of unstable systems waiting to be tested, and I'd just learned how effective I could be at testing them. I got in my car, started the engine, pulled out of the parking lot and onto the street. Behind me, the apartment building grew smaller in the rearview mirror. Ahead, the city stretched out, full of possibility, full of people making mistakes they hadn't paid for yet. I drove toward downtown, thinking about logistics and systems and the precise application of pressure, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I wondered who would underestimate me next, and what I'd do when they did. The engine hummed, the road stretched forward, and I drove into whatever came next. Calm, focused, ready, exactly as I'd been when I'd walked out of that Christmas party. Smiling, patient, knowing. The revenge wasn't one moment. It was every moment since, every consequence they faced while I moved forward, every night they spent in prison or unemployment or regret, while I slept soundly in my quiet apartment. That was the revenge. Complete, perfect, final. I pulled into a parking garage downtown, found a spot, turned off the engine, sat there for 30 seconds, then I got out, locked the car, walked toward the elevator. The meeting was on the 14th floor. I pressed the button, waited, the doors opened, I stepped inside, and as the elevator rose, carrying me toward the next project, the next client, the next system to understand and navigate, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not because the revenge was over, but because I'd learned who I was when pushed. Someone capable of precision, patience, ruthlessness. Someone who understood that the most devastating revenge wasn't violence. It was consequences, natural, inevitable, logical, consequences that destroyed lives while keeping my hands clean. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. I stepped out into the hallway, walked toward the meeting room, knocked on the door. Someone opened it. Mr. Carver? That's me? Come in. We're ready to get started. I walked inside. The door closed behind me. And somewhere across the city, in a prison cell, Patricia Hoffman was beginning her 15th year of understanding what happened when you underestimated the quiet man in the corner. The one who smiled and took a sip and walked away. The one who understood systems. The one who knew exactly where to push. I sat down at the conference table, opened my laptop, and got to work.